Chapter 4207. The 5 immortal-level ferocious beasts were enveloped by the magnificent sea of flames that Yi Xian had summoned from the Shinnong cauldron in the blink of an eye. They were surrounded by the Shinnong flames of 7 colors. There was nowhere to run. The 5 ferocious beasts were a lion, a tiger, a fox, an eagle, and a sharp-cheeked giant rat. The sharp-cheeked giant rat was the smallest, but it was actually the strongest. It had reached the 8th level of the immortal state, only 1 level away from the peak of the 9th level. However, due to its bloodline, it was only around 3,000 meters long. It was a giant among rats, but it was only average compared to some Star-Lord ferocious beasts. Compared to Yi Xian, which was as big as a star, it was almost negligible. Regardless, apart from that, the largest of the 5 ferocious beasts was a black tiger. It was 70 to 80,000 zhang tall and looked extremely mighty. However, its cultivation base was the weakest among the 5 ferocious beasts. It was only at level 1 sempiternal realm. It seemed like it had just recently become a ferocious beast. It had just broken through. Boom! As he stepped into this vast sea of flames that was tens of millions of kilometers in radius, Yi Xian's enormous body instantly occupied a small space. Compared to him, the 5 immortal-level ferocious beasts were so small that they were like ants. Without any hesitation, Yi Xian punched at the black tiger that was the largest of the 5, which was around 80,000 meters long. Yi Xian had used his full strength in this punch. Before the enormous iron fist had even arrived, the boundless and boundless force had already caused the black tiger's enormous body to explode into a bloody mist from a distance of 1,000,000 kilometers. Phew! Almost at the same time, a Shinnong's 7-colored flame swept down from the boundless sea of flames above his head. As if it had a mind of its own, it directly enveloped the vast blood mist formed by the explosion of the immortal rank black tiger's body and began to refine it. Pew! 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 Although this punch was aimed at the black tiger old monster, the current Yi Xian's body was simply too large. When the punch was thrown out, the surging force instantly filled the entire space that was enveloped by the 7-colored sea of flames. The other 4 immortal-level ferocious beasts couldn't dodge at all. They had to bear the impact of the remaining force on their bodies. They all opened their mouths and spurted out blood. Don't waste it like that. That's the essence of your blood. If you keep spitting it out, the quality of your blood essence will be affected. Seeing this scene, a cold light flashed in Yi Xian's eyes. He took a large step forward and closed in on them in an instant. He spread out his arms, and a pair of wind pierced through his ears from the left and right, surrounding the 4 immortal realm old monsters. Screech! Screech! The giant rat, which was the fastest and most agile one, was Yi Xian's attack. It was shrieked and do screech. It was Yi Xuez's head was. The 6-tailed heavenly fox, whose cultivation was in the middle, followed closely behind. It saw an opening and narrowly escaped from Yi Xian's right arm as it whistled through the air. Although they were still trapped in this area with a radius of 10 million miles, at least they had avoided the calamity in front of them. Only the azure-maned lion and the black-feathered furious eagle were a bit too big and their cultivation was a bit too weak. In the end, they weren't able to dodge this attack and were continuously blasted apart by Yi Xian's left and right arms that whistled through the air. Their bodies turned into a bloody mist without any suspense and spread out. Immediately afterward, 2 Shinnong 7-colored flames roared out from the sea of 7-colored flames above. They swept across and completely enveloped the 2 immortal rank ferocious beasts' blood mist that had just exploded, directly starting the blood essence condensation process. Senior, we're willing to surrender. Can you spare our lives? As long as you can spare our lives, we're willing to serve you in the future. Seeing that Yi Xian had killed 2 more of his companions, it would definitely be their turn next. The 6-tailed heavenly fox and the giant rat of the 8th step trembled in their hearts. They immediately lowered their bodies and begged for mercy. There's no need. I already have too many subordinates under me. If I add you guys, I really can't afford to feed them. In the face of their pleas, Yi Xian shook his head and refused on the spot. Besides, what's more attractive to me now is the blood essence condensation of the immortal level ferocious beasts. You guys, are the best raw materials. Boom! Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Xian turned around and punched with both fists again. This time, the six-tailed celestial fox and the level 8 giant rat had nowhere to run. Their front and left were blocked by Yi Xian, and behind them and above them was the burning sea of 7 colors flames. Screech! Screech! In horror and despair, the six-tailed celestial fox and the level 8 giant rat raised their heads at the same time and let out a shrill screech. Almost at the next moment, 2 shocking explosions were heard. The bodies of the six-tailed celestial fox and the level 8 giant rat exploded without any suspense. They were each blown into a bloody mist by Yi Xian's punch. Immediately after that, 2 canisters of Shinnong's 7 colors flames fell from the sea of 7 colors flames above their heads. They wrapped around each other and immediately began to refine them. 5 huh? The harvest this time can be said to be huge. Licking the corner of his mouth, Yi Xian immediately deactivated his 3-headed, 6-armed devil ape true form. With a wave of his hand, the sea of 7 colors flames that covered thousands of miles whizzed out and disappeared into the mouth of the Shinnong cauldron in the distant void. Floating in front of him were 5 blood essences of ferocious beasts of different sizes and colors. They were all immortal level. Whoosh! Whoosh! A faint sound of breaking air was heard. With Yi Xian's thought, the 5 blood essence beads floating in front of him instantly turned into 5 faint blood-colored rays of light that shot directly into Yi Xian's mouth and disappeared. This time, there are 5 blood essences. I wonder, can I break through 2 levels in a row? Muttering softly, Yi Xian's figure flashed. When he reappeared, he was already at the mouth of the Shinnong cauldron in the distance, which was enshrouded in 9-colored mist. He sat down cross-legged and began a new round of closed-door cultivation to break through. Rumble. Roar. Screech. In the distance, a series of loud explosions, as well as the roars and howls of the ferocious beasts, continued to be heard, one after another, rising and falling. On the other side, Yi Xian easily dealt with 5 immortal stage ferocious beasts in less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea. In the surrounding void of the universe, the curtains of the bloody battle between the millions of battleships on Sangji Star and the 20,000 demon cultivator scouts led by Guihai Dao and Song Qingyu and the millions of ferocious beasts in this forbidden space of stars had just begun. Chapter 4208. In the void, a mysterious cauldron the size of a giant star stood there quietly. The mouth of the cauldron was filled with rolling 9-colored fog. A figure was sitting cross-legged there. It was Yi Xian who had swallowed the 5 blood essences and was trying to break through again. At this time, as the effect of the 5 blood essences was released, they turned into a scorching river of energy that surged in Yi Xian's body. Once again, a small human shackle appeared in his body. The incomparably hot blood essence energy surged endlessly in his body. This process was undoubtedly painful, but he immersed his mind in it. With the profound meaning of the ancient cave void tactics, he urged the incomparably hot energy river in his body to flow along his meridians, completing the great circulatory cycle. This time, perhaps it was because this was not the first time he had consumed the blood essences, but the effect of these 5 blood essences was clearly not as strong as the first time he had consumed them. Fortunately, the total amount of 5 blood essences was still able to hold on for a total of 49 cycles. Soon after, a loud crash sounded out from Yi Xian's mind. At this moment, the scorching energy that had been surging through the 100 meridians in his body was completely exhausted. When Yi Xian opened his eyes, the familiar sound of the system's notification rang in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu tactics. Current realm. Level 6 of the immortal realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the body's qi and blood. Current realm. Level 6 of the immortal realm. Before this, the strength of his original body was at level 5 of the immortal realm. Once he activated the bloodline of the ancient demon ape with 3 heads and 6 arms. His strength soared again to level 6 of the immortal realm. If he used the 9 changes of the demonic ape and reached the 6th change, he would instantly reach level 3 of the Marquis immortal realm. And now, with the increase in his cultivation and breakthrough, Once Yi Xian activates the Devil Ape bloodline in his body and enters the 6th transformation of the Devil Ape, his peak combat strength will rise by another level, reaching the 4th level of the Marquis Immortal. He had finally entered the middle stage of the Marquis Immortal realm. Although his cultivation had successfully broken through again and he had now reached level 6 of the Immortal realm, if he activated the bloodline of the ancient demon ape and used the 6th change of the 9 changes of the demonic ape, he would instantly possess the terrifying battle strength of a level 4 of the Marquis Immortal realm. However, Yi Xian did not seem too happy. Previously, just 1 immortal rank blood essence was enough to allow him to break through a small level after his closed-door cultivation. Now, however, it took a total of 5 immortal rank blood essences to achieve the same effect and allow him to break through a small level. This was only the 2nd time, and he already needed 5 blood essences to break through a minor level. What would happen after that? If he wanted to break through a small level, wouldn't he need more and more blood essence? Every time Yi Xian thought of this, he wanted to sigh. He thought he had found a faster way to break through compared to using the great flesh medicine. He did not expect the result to be like this. He was only happy for a day or two. Then he was disappointed. However, as long as I don't take them again, the difference between the 1st time and the 2nd time will not be so great. Then 5 immortal level blood essences is still acceptable. After calming himself down, Yi Xian's mind raced as he muttered to himself, analyzing the possibility of this happening. After a while, his eyes flashed with a bright light, and he made a decision in an instant. If he wanted to know if the 3rd time he swallowed this blood essence, the effect would be the same as it was now, where he only needed about 5 of them to break through a small stage, or if the effect would continue to decline significantly, the only way was to personally test it and swallow it again. Then he would naturally know. Thinking of this, Yi Xian deliberately moved. The last 4 forbidden areas in space should have joined forces by now. Previously, when I used my divine sense to search for them for the 1st time, the number of immortal level beasts in these 4 forbidden areas seemed to be 14. Although he was talking about 14 immortal realm ferocious beasts, he was actually thinking about 14 immortal realm blood essences at this moment. Thinking of this, Yi Xian couldn't sit still any longer. He subconsciously turned his head to look at the surrounding void battlefield. Since the beginning of this battle, although he had already killed 5 immortal rank ferocious beasts and refined the blood mist formed after their bodies exploded into blood essence, he had even swallowed 5 blood essences into his stomach, completing a closed-door cultivation breakthrough. However, the battle around him was still going on. Continued. There was no doubt that this was a one-sided battle. However, judging from the current situation, it would take at least an entire day to clean up the mess after the battle was over. It would be fine if it was only half a day. However, Yi Xian could not wait for an entire day. Moreover, he was worried that the immortal rank ferocious beasts in the other 4 forbidden lands would turn around and flee when the fear in their hearts grew stronger. Although the army of beasts under his command could not take them away, to Yi Xian, the escape of 1 immortal level beast was equivalent to losing 1 immortal level beast blood essence. This was too extravagant. Considering this possibility, he immediately made a decision after pondering for a while. He would not wait for the battle here to end. He would immediately rush to the other 4 forbidden areas and kill the 14 immortal level beasts first. As for the battle here with the 2 immortal level beasts, Flying Centipede and Old Monster Silver G, staying here to watch, there was no possibility of accidents happening. After making the decision, he immediately took action. He rushed out of the mouth of the Shinong cauldron and kept the cauldron with a wave of his hand. Then, he turned his head to look at the Flying Centipede and Old Monster Silver G. He instructed, "The 2 of you stay here and watch. There are still 14 immortal level beasts in the other 4 forbidden areas. It is very likely that they have joined forces. It is also possible that they are trying to escape. I will go first and deal with the 14 immortal level beasts first. You 2 wait for the battle to end and clean up the battlefield before coming back." Chapter 4209. At this moment, the energy within Yi Xian's body surged like a surging river. It surged mightily and instantly became boundless. His body was like a balloon that was being blown up as it quickly swelled up. An ancient ape with 3 heads and 6 arms appeared in the void. The aura of its 3 true forms, flesh, bones, and black mist, was shocking. It was around 30 meters tall, had 3 heads and 6 arms, and the aura it emitted was ferocious to the point it was shocking. Howl! 9 Transformation of the Devil Ape. First Transformation. 9 Transformation of the Devil Ape. 6th Transformation. With a final howl, the ancient ape that was already 3 million meters tall, and its body was like a small star. In an instant, its body expanded tenfold, reaching a terrifying 3 million meters tall. This size was comparable to a small star, and the aura emitted from its body had reached the terrifying 4th level of the Marquis level. Even though he was only at the 4th stage, if the terrifying blood and chi energy within his enormous body were to be included, the current Yi Xian would definitely be able to fight head-on against a late-stage expert at the 7th or 8th stage of the Marquis realm. If he added on the Fallen Sky Bow and the Farmer God Cauldron, he would be able to fight emperors easily. What? 4th level emperor? How can he be so strong? Ancient demon ape, this powerful emperor is actually an ancient demon ape. That's an absolute bloodline. How could this remote corner of the star region have an existence that belonged to the strongest bloodline even in the distant desolate ancient era? Such a being, even in the central region of this world, would definitely be an overlord, yet here he is. This doesn't make sense. What I'm even more puzzled about is that this senior is clearly a ferocious beast, and an ancient ferocious beast with a noble and supreme bloodline. Why would he mix with those weak primordial remnants? None of this is important. What's important is that the enemy is attacking. Everyone, what should we do? Hong! Screech! Seeing Yi Xian suddenly activate the Devil Ape bloodline in his body, and directly use the Devil Ape's 9 transformations to the 6th transformation, transforming into a terrifying Devil Ape with 3 heads and 6 arms. The 14 immortal-level ferocious beasts were instantly shocked. Caught off guard, they all cried out involuntarily. They exclaimed. It was also at this moment that Yi Xian, whose body was like a star, approached them with a leap. Without saying anything, he punched out, and in the blink of an eye, the 2 immortal-level fierce beasts that were caught off guard exploded into a bloody mist. At this moment, he had the fighting strength of a level 4 Marquis Immortal Realm expert, which was the middle phase of this realm. It was different from the peak of level 3 in the previous battle. He was much stronger now. It was natural that he could kill 2 immortal-level beasts with 1 punch. Who? With a wave of his hand, 2 canopies of Shinnong's 7-color flames roared out of the Shinnong cauldron, wrapping around the 2 canopies of blood mist and starting the blood essence refinement. All of this happened too quickly. 2 of the 14 undying beasts were killed in an instant, leaving only 12 undying beasts. At this moment, the 12 surviving immortal-level beasts all retreated, not daring to lightly attack him. To the current Yi Xian, the immortal-level battle prowess no longer had the qualifications to fight him head-on. Facing more than a dozen immortal-level beasts, the current him was as if a tiger in a flock of sheep. Senior, do you have to fight to the death like this? We have no enmity and have never offended you. Senior, as a descendant of the beasts, why are you helping those ants of Sangji Star to kill us all? Senior, we are willing to surrender and surrender to you. A dozen undying battle strength is enough to help you go to the central territory of the Starry Sky and seize a more powerful forbidden area. That's right. There are even immortal rank experts guarding the more powerful forbidden lands. Senior won't be able to take them down alone. We're willing to help Senior block those immortal rank generals so that Senior can focus on killing the enemy. Roar, I am unwilling. Hong! Facing Yi Xian's terrifying battle strength that was comparable to a late-stage official level undying, the 12 normal undying beasts couldn't resist at all. Even their will to fight crumbled instantly. They originally thought that the undying behind the desolate star was only at the early stage of this level, at most level 2 or 3. Who would have thought that not only was his cultivation base at level 4, but he also had a demon ape true form with 3 heads and 6 arms. His blood chi was so strong that his battle strength was close to level 7 or 8 of Marquis level 8. Hence, this battle had no suspense at all. Even if they fought together, they were destined to be killed one by one. Under the fear in their hearts, the 12 ordinary immortal level beasts all tried to persuade him, patiently guiding him, and even expressed their willingness to surrender on the spot. As the vanguard, they would help Yi Xian head to the central domain of the starry sky and attack a place where the overall strength of the Marquis realm was even stronger. The will of the Forbidden Land. Unfortunately, all of this had no effect at all. The ancient ape demon was completely unmoved, and did not even bother to make any response. Oh no, its response was actually very strong, very obvious, and it immediately punched out. The majestic power of this explosion surged out and appeared too suddenly. The two immortal rank ferocious beasts were the first to bear the brunt of it. They had no time to dodge at all. One of them didn't even have the chance to make a sound, and the other only unwillingly raised its head and let out a heaven-shaking roar. Immediately after, the boundless strength chi that was as violent as a storm completely covered the two of them. What happened next was no surprise. Yi Xian, whose battle strength was comparable to a level 8 official level Undying, wasn't much weaker than the second-generation ancestor of the demon race. The latter was a level 9 official level Undying at the pinnacle level. At this moment, the two normal Undying beasts were only at level 3 or 4. This majestic force that made people's hair stand on end instantly wreaked havoc and made their bodies explode, turning them into a mist of blood. Who? Yi Xian was already familiar with the rest of the story. With a wave of his hand, the two Shenong's 7-colored flames instantly rushed out, firmly wrapping around the two exploding fierce beast blood mist. He immediately began refining the blood essence at the first possible moment. All of this took a long time to describe. In fact, from the time Yi Xian activated the ancient ape demon bloodline in his body until now, only a dozen breaths' time had passed since he killed the 4 undying beasts with 2 punches. Chapter 42:10. There was no suspense in the outcome of the battle. Even when these 14 ordinary immortal stage ferocious beasts hadn't suffered any losses in the beginning, when the 14 immortal stage ferocious beasts joined forces to fight Yi Xian, they still didn't have the slightest chance of winning. Now, within a short span of a dozen breaths, Yi Xian had blown up 4 immortal realm ultimate ferocious beasts with 2 punches. There were only 10 immortal realm ultimate ferocious beasts left. Because of the fear and despair in their hearts, these 10 immortal realm ultimate ferocious beasts did not even have the confidence to join forces to fight. Their fighting spirit was completely gone. They all turned around and fled in different directions. Faced with such a situation, they were completely hopeless. They were no match for Yi Xian even if they joined forces. Now that they had scattered like birds and beasts, the only outcome was that they would be caught by Yi Xian, who was much faster than them, and killed one by one. Boom! Boom boom! Screech! Roar! In the void, as Yi Xian attacked again and again, a huge roar that shook the heavens resounded in an instant. It was followed by the desperate and unwilling roars and screeches of the immortal realm ultimate ferocious beasts. This battle was too bloody. Although it was brutal, it was simple and direct. In less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Yi Xian had caught up to the 10 immortal level ferocious beasts one after another. Every single one of them was simply punched out, causing them to explode into a bloody mist. Then, Yi Xian waved his hand and drew out a wisp of Shenong's 7-colored flame from the Shenong cauldron in his body. It enveloped the bloody mist that spread after the explosion of the target and began to condense the blood essence on the spot. Near and far, the tens of millions of ferocious beasts that had gathered behind the 14 immortal realm ultimate ferocious beasts had already scattered. As far as the eye could see, the vast expanse of space was in chaos. Everywhere were the figures of ominous beasts fleeing in panic. As these ominous beasts fled, their bodies trembled incessantly. Moreover, there were all sorts of low and deep cries due to great fear resounding throughout the area. Yi Xian didn't pay any attention to these fleeing space beasts. He wasn't interested in them at all. When the army of the survivors of Mulberry G-Star arrived, they would naturally launch the final attack on these ferocious beasts in the various forbidden areas of the starry sky. Previously, Yi Xian didn't know much about the world outside the hundreds of millions of kilometers of void. However, from the information that the 14 immortal rank ferocious beasts had inadvertently revealed when they were begging for mercy, the hundreds of millions of kilometers of void surrounded by Mulberry G-Star and the 6 surrounding starry sky forbidden zones should only be limited. It was just a remote corner of this desolate ancient world fragment. Even further behind these 6 forbidden lands, there were even stronger forbidden lands. The beasts guarding them were all official-level undyings, even emperor-level undyings. After understanding this situation, Yi Xian finally understood why none of the immortal-level beasts in the 6 forbidden areas of the starry sky didn't flee far away from the starry sky when they clearly knew that an immortal-level, marquee-level, immortal-level, 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 immortal. Level, immortal 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 level, immortal. This was because they had nowhere to go. In the distant void behind them, there were even more powerful forbidden lands, and there were also terrifying official-level undyings. This way, Yi Xian didn't have to worry about the tens of millions of ferocious beasts escaping. Similarly, they had no way to escape and could only wander about in this vast expanse of space. In a sense, Mulberry Star, which was surrounded by the 6 forbidden areas of space, was imperceptibly sealed. However, weren't the 6 forbidden areas of space the same? However, none of this had anything to do with Yi Xian. He didn't feel that there was anything wrong with the bloody massacre he was about to unleash. The chaos of the Great Desolate Era could descend at any time. Everyone was working hard to survive because everyone wasn't just living for themselves. They all had different things to protect. Shoo! Shoo, shoo, shoo! A faint sound of breaking through the air was heard. From the surrounding void, streaks of bloody light shot over and landed in Yi Xian's right palm. They transformed into 14 blood essence beads of different sizes and colors. Looking at the 14 blood essence beads in his palm, Yi Xian's eyes flashed with joy. With a wave of his hand, the farmer god cauldron appeared from within his body. 14 streaks of rainbow-colored light shot over from the surrounding void and entered the cauldron. Yi Xian's figure also flashed as he appeared at the mouth of the Shinong cauldron that was filled with a 9-colored fog. He sat down cross-legged and threw the 14 blood essences into his mouth. After swallowing them, he closed his eyes and began another round of closed-door cultivation. When the 14 blood essence beads entered his stomach, Yi Xian was still a little nervous at first. This was because if the 3rd time he swallowed these blood essence beads, the difference between the 1st and 2nd time would be the same. Then, these 14 blood essence beads would be far from enough to help him break through a small level. This was definitely a result that would make people speechless. Yi Xian would be greatly disappointed, but at the same time he also had a strong sense of expectation in his heart. Because if the 3rd time he swallowed them, the effect would be the same as the 2nd time. Although it would be far inferior to the 1st time compared to the 2nd time, it wouldn't be too much of a decline. Then, these 14 blood essence beads would definitely not just allow him to break through a small level. At the very least, it would allow him to break through 2 small levels or even 3 small levels. Of course, the possibility of 3 consecutive breakthroughs was still very small. Soon, the 14 blood essence beads melted in Yi Xian's body in the blink of an eye. They turned into a majestic and scorching energy that quickly flowed through his limbs and bones. The familiar clanking sound of chains could be heard immediately. There was also an extremely strong tingling sensation. The 1.08 billion pores on the surface of his body glowed brightly. This time, he couldn't even remember how many large circulations he had made. Finally, a loud clanking sound rang out in Yi Xian's mind. The scorching energy that had been surging through his meridians was completely exhausted at this moment. When he opened his eyes, the familiar sound of the system notification suddenly rang out in his mind. It had happened twice in a row, which made him extremely happy. Ding! Congratulations to the host for making a breakthrough in the realm of the ancient Dongshu formula. Current realm. Level 7 of the immortal realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for making a breakthrough in the realm of the Qi and blood body. Current realm. Level 7 of the immortal realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for making a breakthrough in the realm of the ancient Dongshu formula. Current realm. Level 8 of the immortal realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for making a breakthrough in the realm of the Qi and blood body. Current realm. Level 8 of the immortal realm. Level 8 of the Immortal Realm. Another 2 consecutive breakthroughs. Now that Yi Xian had made another breakthrough in his cultivation, once he activated the bloodline of the demonic ape in his body and entered the 6th change of the demonic ape, his peak battle strength would soar to level 6 of the Marquee Immortal Realm. He was only 1 level away from becoming a Marquee Immortal Realm. Then, he would reach the advanced Marquee Immortal Realm. Chapter 42:11. Now, Yi Xian was at the 8th level of the Undying Realm under normal circumstances. If he wanted to become an official Undying, he still needed to break through 2 levels. According to his estimation, he would need at least 15 Undying level blood essences of ferocious beasts to break through these 2 levels. There was no longer a single immortal rank ferocious beast in this multimillion-mile-wide cosmic void. The only way for him to obtain immortal rank ferocious beast blood essence was to leave this multimillion-mile-wide cosmic void and hunt in other forbidden areas in the starry sky that were even more distant. Yes. Of course, in the sealed cave at the bottom of the Shinong Cauldron domain volcano in his body, there were many corpses of immortal primordial creatures, from ordinary immortal, marquis, king, emperor, all the way to quasi-primordial, desolation supreme, and so on. And there were many of them. However, these remains of primordial creatures that had been dead for a long time couldn't be used to refine blood essences. They could only be roasted or refined into blood and flesh medicine. Hence, if he wanted to obtain new Undying level blood essences, going to other forbidden lands further away in the space of billions of miles was the only choice. However, compared to the 6 forbidden lands in this corner of the starry sky, those forbidden lands were much stronger. Every one of them had an official level ferocious beast guarding them. Even if Yi Xian went stealthily by himself and started hunting, it would be fine if there were only a few of them. However, if he wanted to hunt a total of 15 immortal level beasts and use the divine Nong 7-colored flame to condense blood essence on the spot. Once the official level Undyings in these forbidden lands were alerted, and the other official level Undyings in other forbidden lands would join forces, then even if Yi Xian had the ability to deal with them, he would be hard-pressed. From his point of view, it wasn't the right time to officially start a war with these official level Undyings in space. No matter what, he had to improve his strength a little more. The entire Mulberry Ji planet had 12 major tribes, thousands of mountain villages, and tens of millions of primordial survivors. He had to take another step forward before the time was ripe. According to Yi Xian's original plan, after sweeping through all 6 of the forbidden areas in the starry sky and dominating this corner of the starry sky for hundreds of millions of kilometers, he would bring his subordinates and hibernate in Mulberry Ji Star. He would refine all of the fierce beast materials into great flesh and blood medicine, and then all of them would be refined. He went into seclusion to cultivate and break through. At the same time, Yi Xian himself would do the same. Only when his cultivation and the overall cultivation level of his subordinates had reached a new height would he step out of this corner of the void and begin a new journey. This main line of the plan would not change for the time being. However, Yi Xian needed even more immortal rank vicious beast blood essences. As such, he had to find a balance between the two. Forget it. I'll bring the army here first and carry out the final hunt for the tens of millions of ferocious beasts that fled from the 4 forbidden lands of the starry sky. After that, I'll return to Mulberry Tree and refine the flesh medicine. Muttering to himself, Yi Xian quickly finalized the follow-up details of the plan. As for me, I've swallowed blood essences 3 times in a row. There's still some medicinal power in my blood, flesh, marrow, and bones that I haven't refined. After returning to Mulberry Tree, I can go into seclusion again. At the same time, I'll consume some top-grade purple gold flesh medicine and the all-evil origin liquid as a supplement to start a new breakthrough. Once this breakthrough is successful, I'll only be a small breakthrough away from becoming an immortal marquis in my normal state. The amount of blood essences I need will be greatly reduced. Moreover, since this is a breakthrough, I'll need a bottle of level 21 liquid. As such, if I use the method of condensing blood essences to refine this bottle of level 21 liquid, I'll most likely be able to add some energy from the remains of quasi-desolation powerful beings. If that's the case, I should only need 3 or 4 blood essences to complete the final breakthrough. In other words, I only need to sneak to the edge of the forbidden land further away and kill 4 immortal-level ferocious beasts stealthily. That should be enough. With that in mind, Yi Xian no longer hesitated. With a flash of his body, He shot toward the second forbidden land of the starry sky that had just been exterminated. He arrived at his destination in just half an hour. At this time, the battle here had also ended. Gui Hai Yi Dao, Song Qingyu, and the other 20,000 demon experts were assisting the tens of millions of primordial survivors on Mulberry Tree to clean up the battlefield and collect the spoils of war. All of this was sped up by Yi Xian's arrival. In just a few hours, it was completely over. After that, Yi Xian waved his hand and summoned the giant life fortress of Long Yi. After having all of his subordinates enter the giant life fortress, he waved his hand and charged towards the tens of millions of forbidden beasts in front of him, each of them looking for a place to hide. Hong! Hong Long Long! After the giant fortress of life arrived at this area, a loud roar rang out again. The tens of millions of primordial survivors on Mulberry Tree all moved out in all kinds of warships, including the 20,000 demon experts led by Gui Hai Yi Dao and Song Qingyu, the 8 great guardian deities, Flying Centipede, and Old Monster Silver G were not idle either. Once again, they were blasted out of the Shinong Cauldron by Yi Xian. The former's mission was to refine weapons and temper himself, while the latter's mission was to kill all the old monsters among the tens of millions of ferocious beasts in the Forbidden Lands, leaving only a small portion for the dozens of universe-grade survivors on Mulberry Tree to refine their weapons. A bloody battle broke out again in an instant. This battle lasted even longer. After all, the target of the hunt was all the ferocious beasts in the 4 Forbidden Lands in the starry skies. There were nearly 50 million of them. Moreover, these ferocious beasts of the Forbidden Grounds had long lost their courage after the 14 immortal rank ferocious beast commanders were killed one by one in a short period of time. They had all scattered and found a place to hide. It would take a lot of effort just to drag them out of their hiding places. It would definitely take some time. Yi Xian still did not participate in this battle, but he did not go far away. Instead, he sat cross-legged at the mouth of the Shinong Cauldron, which was shrouded in 9-colored fog, and deduced the formula of the level 21 liquid that was about to be condensed. In the end, after 3 full days, Yi Xian finally perfectly deduced the formula of the level 21 liquid. This final battle finally came to an end. Chapter 42:12. 3 days later, the final battle was over. Since then, the original 6 forbidden lands of the Starry Sky had completely disappeared, and the tribe of the Desolation survivors on the Mulberry Tree Star had become the only existence in this remote corner of the void, dominating hundreds of millions of miles. Of course, there were still many living stars in this region that were home to ferocious beasts that didn't belong to the 6 forbidden zones. However, regardless of whether it was Yi Xian or the survivors of the primordial era on Sangji planet, none of them planned to kill all of these ferocious beasts. There was no need for that at all. There were already enough ferocious beast corpses on hand. There were nearly 80 million of them, enough for the 12 great tribes on Sangji planet, as well as thousands of strongholds of various sizes. The tens of millions of primordial survivors had refined an ocean's worth of flesh medicine. Moreover, they'd only used up a small portion of the flesh medicine they'd obtained in the previous frenzied refinement. They still had plenty left. After returning to Mulberry Tree Star, the second large-scale flesh medicine refinement exercise was launched immediately. Yi Xian didn't pay any attention to any of this. The flesh medicine they'd refined this time wasn't even worth his attention. According to his instructions, the tens of millions of primordial survivors on Mulberry Tree could digest them on their own. As for the 8 Vajras, the Flying Centipede, Old Monster Inji, Gui Hai Yi Dao, Song Qingyu, and Ingtai, they all entered the Farmer God Cauldron and Fortress of Life to cultivate in seclusion again. Their cultivation was still a little weak in the end. There was still a long way to go before they could grow stronger. Yi Xian didn't enter Mulberry Tree. He remained in space outside the planet's atmosphere. After summoning the Farmer God Cauldron with a wave of his hand, he flashed to the mouth of the cauldron shrouded in 9-colored mist and sat down cross-legged. First, he calmed his mind, and then he took out a large amount of cultivation resources. Besides the purple-gold top-notch flesh and blood medicine that he had just refined not long ago, there was also the Netherworld Furnace Lotion, All-Evil Origin Liquid, and so on. In the end, after pondering for a while, Yi Xian even cut off a small piece of the blood and flesh of the purple gold rat from the sealed cave at the bottom of the volcano in the central region of the space inside the cauldron. He roasted it with the Shinong 7-colored flame until it was golden and oil dripping. After the fragrance of the meat filled the air, he took out the cultivation resources that he had already prepared. Together, they chewed and swallowed. After he finished all of this, he closed his eyes and entered a new round of closed-door cultivation to break through. Time slowly passed by. However, at this very moment, Yi Xian had already entered a state where he had completely forgotten about the existence of time. Walala! Hua! Ever since he had swallowed all the cultivation resources that he had prepared, Yi Xian's body had been ringing with the sound of chains. All the cultivation resources had melted and turned into a warm current that finally gathered together in his body. It was like a big river, with a heart-palpitating scorching heat, rolling and surging endlessly in Yi Xian's limbs and bones. Although it was painful, Yi Xian had long been accustomed to this kind of pain. It did not affect his mind at all. Currently, his entire mind was immersed in the comfortable feeling of opening up the meridians in his body and breaking through the shackles of his fleshly body to his heart's content. It was as if he was intoxicated. His entire fleshly body was emitting rays of dazzling light. The 1.08 billion pores on his body were all flowing with auspicious aura. Finally, with a loud noise in Yi Xian's mind, the scorching energy that had been rolling and surging in his meridians was completely exhausted at this moment. When Yi Xian opened his eyes, the familiar sound of the system notification suddenly rang in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu formula. Current realm. Level 9 Immortal Realm. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the Qi and Blood Body. Current realm. Level 9 Immortal Realm. Following this breakthrough in his cultivation, Yi Xian's current cultivation strength had already reached the perfection of the 9th step of the Immortal Realm under normal circumstances. Once he activated the demonic ape bloodline in his body, he would be able to break through one realm and attain the strength of level 1 Marquee Immortal Realm. If he entered the 6th change of the demonic ape bloodline, his peak battle strength would soar again and reach level 6 Marquee Immortal Realm. He would enter the late stage of Marquee Immortal Realm. Although this breakthrough was only a small level, it was significant to Yi Xian at this moment. This was because he was about to go to the Forbidden Land of Space that was even further away from the Forbidden Land of Space to hunt immortal level supreme ferocious beasts. As he did not intend to alarm the Marquee Immortals in the Forbidden Land of Space, he set his target as 5 blood essences for now. Besides, the only way to hunt them was by stealth. Since he was going to hunt them in stealth, he had to ensure that he could kill them in one hit. Otherwise, once a battle broke out, he would undoubtedly be exposed. And the targets were all immortal level supreme ferocious beasts. To ensure that he could kill them in one hit, Yi Xian had to possess the strength of Marquee Immortal Realm, even if it was only at level 1. Before this breakthrough, he had activated the demonic ape bloodline in his body and displayed the demonic ape true form with 3 heads and 6 arms. However, his strength was only at level 9 Immortal Realm. If he wanted to reach level 1 Marquee Immortal Realm, he would have to perform the first change of the 9 changes of the demonic ape. However, once he did so, his body size would increase by 10 times, reaching a height of 300 meters. Although 300 meters was not huge, it was still too eye-catching for stealth hunting. If the target was too big, even if he hid his body, his aura could be leaked, and thus, his whereabouts would be exposed. However, this problem was perfectly solved now. After breaking through another level, Yi Xian's strength had reached level 9 Immortal Realm Perfection. If he wanted to possess the strength of an Marquee Immortal Realm Perfection, he only needed to activate the demonic ape bloodline in his body. There was no need for him to perform the 9 changes of the demonic ape bloodline ability. In this way, his body would only be around 30 meters tall, which would make it much more convenient for him to sneak around and hunt. After ending this round of seclusion, Yi Xian did not alarm anyone on Sangji Star. He waved his hand and stored the farmer god cauldron into his undying world. Then, with a flash of his body, he shot toward the faraway void of this forbidden land of space. Those even more powerful forbidden areas in the starry sky were obviously not too close to the corner of the starry sky where Sangji was located. Yi Xian had long since been mentally prepared for this. Even so, the boring interstellar travel that followed still left him speechless. Although he was traveling in his normal state and did not use the void-shattering shuttle or the wild dragon ship, his speed was not considered slow as he was at level 9 Immortal Realm perfection. Just like that, they traveled at full speed for a full 10 days, leaving behind hundreds of millions of kilometers of space behind them. Finally, in the distant space in front of them, a place with densely packed life planets gathered together finally appeared. If there were no accidents, this must be an even more powerful starry sky forbidden area. Chapter 42:13. When he was in the mulberry tree star field, the 6 forbidden lands were not very large in scale. They were basically a dozen life stars with a large number of powerful ferocious beasts gathered in one area. Tens of millions of ferocious beasts were formed under the leadership of 3 to 4 immortal-level ferocious beasts. A forbidden land in space. But right now, after Yi Xian left the mulberry tree star region, he flew through the starry sky for an entire 10 days. After traveling hundreds of millions of kilometers, he encountered this forbidden area in the starry sky. The scale of this forbidden area clearly far surpassed the 6 forbidden areas in the mulberry tree star region. Let's not talk about whether the strongest fierce beast leader in this forbidden land was in Marquis or not, or how many Marquis-level undying beasts there were. Just in this relatively large star field, there were more than 100 planets with a large number of ferocious beasts living in them. Judging from this number, there were at least 100 million ferocious beasts in this starry sky forbidden area. According to Yi Xian's estimation, if there were no accidents, the fierce beast leaders in this forbidden land must be Marquis-level undying beasts, and there should be more than 2 or 3 of them. If there were more than 2 Marquis-level undying beasts, then there should be more than 100 immortal-level fierce beasts, if not more. It just so happened that there were more than 100 life stars in this area. Therefore, if there were no accidents, there should be an immortal-level fierce beast in each of these life stars. Yi Xian didn't enter this area as a human, because if he did, he would undoubtedly be exposed. Although in the vast void outside of the mulberry tree star region, other than the more powerful forbidden areas in the starry sky, there were also more powerful ancient remnant stars. However, in this fragment of void, the primordial remnant and space fierce beasts were obviously enemies. This was a forbidden land under the rule of fierce beasts, so it was unlikely that the primordial remnant would appear here. While he was still a distance away, Yi Xian had already activated the devil-ape bloodline in his body and showed his 3-headed, 6-armed ancient devil-ape body. Previously, under normal circumstances, his strength was at the peak of the 9th level of the immortal realm. After activating the devil-ape bloodline, his strength was at the 1st level of the Marquis level, which was extremely powerful. However, this kind of strength obviously could not be exposed. Otherwise, in this forbidden land in space, it would be like a candle in the night sky. It would be too eye-catching and would bring endless trouble. Even his 3-headed, 6-armed demonic ape true form could not appear like this, because although most of the ferocious beasts inhabiting this corner of the void of the primordial world fragment were rare species in the 3 main planes of the starry sky and had a strong bloodline of primordial creatures, the 3-headed, 6-armed demonic ape was too powerful. After all, the ancient devil ape was too famous. Even in this fragment of void space, there were no descendants of the ancient devil ape bloodline. Once Yi Xian showed up with his 3-headed, 6-armed devil ape body, he was afraid that it would immediately cause a sensation and cause a lot of trouble. It would undoubtedly be difficult to carry out the follow-up stealth hunting. Just as he carefully spread out his divine sense, Yi Xian found that among the hundreds of life stars of fierce beasts in front of him, there was a life star inhabited by fierce beasts. Most of them were violent star apes. Moreover, this life star, where most of the fierce beasts were violent star apes, happened to be located at the edge of this star field. The size of the life star was not the largest, but not the smallest either. It was about the size of a medium. Could be said that it was the best place to target. Therefore, after pondering for a while, Yi Xian immediately took the other 2 bodies of the devil ape body, which was the skeleton body and the black fog body, into his body. Only the body of flesh and blood was left, and he slightly changed it to look similar to the violent star apes. As for the strength of his cultivation, he hid it around the sector lord level. It was not too low, but not too high. If it was too high, it would arouse suspicion. If it was too low, even if he entered the life star where the violent star apes lived, he was afraid that he would not be able to get close to the immortal level fierce beasts that ruled this life star. Yes. After everything was ready, Yi Xian checked it and was very satisfied. Then, without delay, his figure flashed and rushed to the target life star in the right corner of the void space. After entering this forbidden space, the fierce beast's activities in the void space became extremely frequent. From time to time, there would be a fierce beast of different forms passing by. Although they belonged to different races and had different bloodlines, they were all subordinates of the same forbidden space. Therefore, these fierce beasts of space would obviously not have conflicts with each other casually. Of course, this kind of thing could not be stopped. After all, fierce beasts were naturally bloodthirsty and warlike. At this time, Yi Xian was a violent star ape with the cultivation of sector lord level. He was only 2 realms away from the immortal level. Even in this powerful forbidden space, such a cultivation strength could be considered to be above the middle level among the subordinates of the immortal level fierce beasts of a life star. Therefore, he entered the target life star without any hindrance. After finding a place to hide, he spread out his soul consciousness silently. Soon, he captured the aura of 2 immortal level fierce beasts. In this life star, there were 2 immortal level fierce beasts. They were both violent star apes, and they happened to be together at this moment. To Yi Xian, this was the best time to make a move. Retracting his soul consciousness, Yi Xian used his violent star ape form and tried his best to get close to them. When he was tens of thousands of li away from them, he was stopped by their guards. Then he turned around and left. He went to the back of a mountain and directly activated the energy in his body. Teleport. Show! With Yi Xian's current cultivation strength, he could accurately teleport from tens of thousands of li away. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of the 2 immortal-level violent star apes, less than 100 meters away from them. At this moment, as Yi Xian used his full strength to teleport, his immortal level 1 immortal level aura was fully displayed. All the violent star apes on the life star could feel it. All the ferocious beasts on the planet were dumbfounded when they sensed the terrifying aura of the Marquis-level Undying Realm. They didn't know what was going on. Why would a Marquis-level Undying Realm commander of a forbidden land come here? As for the 2 immortal rank Starry Sky Berserk apes in front of Yi Xian, they were completely dumbfounded in an instant. They stared at Yi Xian with their mouths agape. They also didn't understand why a powerful Marquis Immortal would suddenly appear in the core area of their lair. Chapter 42:14. Yi Xian's unexpected appearance caused the 2 immortal rank Starry Sky Berserk apes to be shocked. Soon after, the 2 of them fell into a state of shock. They didn't realize that danger was coming, and they never thought that the Marquis-level Undying in front of them would attack them, because they were all space-violent apes, and the same blood flowed in their bodies. Although the origin of the other party was a bit strange, he was still an elder of the same race. However, in the next instant, before the 2 of them could recover from their bewilderment, an unforeseen event suddenly occurred. Boom! Boom! Ruthless. Yi Xian, who had quietly appeared, didn't hesitate in the slightest. Taking advantage of the fact that the other party had yet to recover from his shock, he immediately threw out 2 punches. The strength of the Marquis Immortal was undoubtedly revealed, and at such a close distance, the 2 immortal-level Starry Sky Berserk apes didn't even have time to react. They were blasted apart, turning into 2 clouds of bloody mist. One of them didn't even have the time to make a sound, and the other only let out a short howl. The howl had only just started, but it had already come to an abrupt stop in an instant. After that, Yi Xian waved his hand, and 2 Shinnong 7-colored flames surged out of the Shinnong cauldron in his body. One on the left and one on the right, they enveloped the 2 clouds of blood mist from the explosion of the 2 undying space-violent apes and started the blood essence condensation immediately. The whole process was very fast, and in less than 3 breaths, the blood essence condensation was completed. As Yi Xian waved his hand again, the 2 Shinnong 7-colored flames flew back into his body, and at the same time, two nascent soul fist-sized blood essence beads shot back into Yi Xian's Shinong cauldron and disappeared. In the blink of an eye, the two immortal rank Starry Sky Berserk apes were instantly killed by Yi Xian's thunderous methods. Moreover, they were condensed into two nascent fist-sized ferocious beast blood essences on the spot and absorbed them into his body. After doing all this, Yi Xian didn't stay for a moment. His figure flashed, and before all the beasts on the entire planet could react, he had already arrived outside the atmosphere of this planet. Without any hesitation, he turned around and rushed to the nearest life planet. The goal of this mission was to get 5 Undying level blood essences, and now he had already gotten 2. He still needed 3 more, which meant that after this, Yi Xian had to kill 3 Undying level beasts as quickly as possible. It wasn't realistic to plan slowly and carefully like before because the deaths of the 2 Starry Sky apes would be discovered very soon. Moreover, if nothing unexpected happened, this matter would be reported at the first possible moment. At that time, the marquee Undyings in this powerful forbidden area would be immediately alarmed. At that time, with a single order, at least 100 immortal-level beasts in the 100 or so life stars would all move out. Adding on 2 to 3 marquee Undyings, even if Yi Xian was able to escape unscathed, he would probably be in deep trouble. Would be in a difficult situation. What he needed to do now was to kill 3 more immortal-level ferocious beasts as soon as possible before the marquee Undying in this powerful forbidden area of space noticed this matter. As long as he could accomplish this goal, even if the marquee Undying was still alarmed at the last moment, Yi Xian would be able to immediately withdraw. If he retreated, he wouldn't be tied down here. With this thought in mind, Yi Xian activated his maximum speed. In just a few breaths of time, he arrived at the nearest life star. Without the slightest hesitation, he plunged into the atmosphere of the life star. With a spread of his divine sense, he instantly locked onto the position of the immortal rank ferocious beast leader in this life star. What surprised him again was that there were actually 2 immortal rank ferocious beasts in this life star that was mainly dominated by the subblood greedy wolf bloodline. Although they were not together at the moment, they were not far from each other. As long as he killed these 2 Undying level subblood greedy wolves, Yi Xian only needed to kill 1 more before retreating. Shio! Yi Xian's figure appeared beside one of the inferior blood-greedy wolves. Without the slightest hesitation, he threw a punch at the same time. Hong! This guy had just turned around, but before he could make a sound, his entire body exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Who? Yi Xian immediately waved his hand and guided a strand of Shinong's 7-colored flame from his body, wrapping around the blood mist. In less than 3 breaths' time, he had already condensed it into a blood essence bead the size of an infant's fist. In the next instant, just as the strand of Shinong's 7-colored flame and the blood essence bead was absorbed into his body, an extremely shrill wolf howl came from behind him. A woo! Space Berserk Ape, what do you want? He turned around and saw that the other Undying level subblood greedy wolf on this life planet had actually taken the initiative to attack him. Although Yi Xian's body was emitting Undying level power and he was no match for it, this was a powerful space forbidden land after all. However, there were also 3 marquee immortal rank ferocious beast commanders, and they would be here soon. Therefore, this subblood greedy wolf seemed to be fearless, giving Yi Xian a feeling that it was completely fearless. Since you've delivered yourself to me, it's good. This saves me the trouble of searching for you. With a cold smile, Yi Xian's figure flashed, and he arrived in front of this Undying level subblood greedy wolf in the blink of an eye. Without saying anything, he directly threw a punch. Hong! Who? Under Yi Xian's full-force punch, the opponent's huge body directly exploded into a cloud of blood mist that quietly dispersed. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly waved his hand, and a strand of Shinong's 7-colored flame was guided out from the Shinong cauldron in his body, directly wrapping around the spreading blood mist. Then the blood began to flow, condense. Everything was still completed in less than 3 breaths' time. In the end, Yi Xian waved his hand, and this strand of Shinong's 7-colored flame that was guided out directly entered his body. At the same time, it brought back a blood essence bead the size of an infant's fist and also entered the Shinong cauldron. Since then, he had killed 4 immortal rank ferocious beast leaders in a short period of time in this powerful forbidden land of stars. For more immortal rank, ferocious beast blood essences appeared in the Shinnong cauldron in his body. There was only one blood essence left. However, according to Yi Xian's estimations, his arrival should have already been exposed at this moment. Whether or not he would be able to successfully obtain the last piece of blood essence was instantly filled with suspense. Roar! Roar! Screech! It was also at this moment that 3 earth-shattering roars and screeches of ferocious beasts suddenly came from the 3 superstars of this powerful starry sky forbidden area. Even though they were separated by an endless void, the sound traveled billions of miles, causing countless powerful ferocious beasts in the surrounding hundreds of life stars to tremble in fear. The beasts all trembled. Chapter 42:15. Although Yi Xian's speed was extremely fast and he immediately rushed to the second planet after killing the 2 starry sky berserk apes, he didn't delay at all and used the fastest speed to kill the 2 immortal level inferior blood-greedy wolves. However, in the end, the immortal level blood essence in his hands reached for. But, as expected, he was exposed at this time. A figure rushed out from each of the 3 giant ferocious beasts planets around the central territory of this powerful forbidden area of the starry sky. There was an earth-shattering roar from each of their mouths, which shook billions of miles. Hundreds of millions of ferocious beasts on hundreds of ferocious beasts planets were all trembling. As for the immortal rank ferocious beasts on the hundreds of ferocious beasts planets, they immediately roared as if they were responding. Their figures turned into silhouettes and rushed out from the atmosphere of the ferocious beasts planets that they ruled. Moo! From the giant planet on the left of the central region, a green bull rushed out. Its body was 100,000 feet long. Its strength was overwhelming, and its cultivation level was at level 7. It was the strongest of the 3 undying level marquee in this forbidden space zone. Roar! On the right, a starry sky blood crocodile roared as it emerged from the atmosphere of the giant planet it resided in. Its body was also 1,000,000 zhang long, and its slender tail was covered with barbs, causing people to shudder. Perhaps even a giant planet would not be able to withstand a single whip from this giant crocodile tail. Its cultivation level was at level 4 marquee. See, within the huge star behind the central region, there was an incomparably sharp roar. The official level undying was a black beetle. Its bloodline was unknown, and it was small, only 30,000 meters. However, its strength wasn't weak, reaching the sealed level. Level 3 marquee was at the peak of the initial stage. It was only 1 step away from the middle stage of the marquee level. At this moment, just as Yi Xian's figure charged out from the atmosphere of the second target planet, the 3 immortal level ferocious beasts roared furiously as they rushed towards his location. Although they were still tens of millions of miles away, with the cultivation and strength of these 3 ferocious beast commanders, they would be able to arrive in a few breaths at most with their extremely fast speed. In addition, as far as the eye could see, there were 1 to 2 immortal level ferocious beasts on each of the hundreds of life planets that covered hundreds of millions of kilometers of space. They rushed out from the atmosphere of the planets and roared furiously. They were like a tide as they roared towards Yi Xian. 3 marquee level, undying level beasts and hundreds of ordinary undying level beasts. This kind of beast's formation was terrifying. Even with Yi Xian's current strength, even if he performed the 6th transformation of the 9 transformation demon ape bloodline, he would be in a difficult situation if he was surrounded. He might even be severely injured. However, he didn't have a choice. It wasn't time to retreat yet. Now, Yi Xian's strength had reached level 9 pinnacle of the undying level. If he wanted to break through to level 1 marquee level undying level, he would need to make a level 21 liquid. Otherwise, the chances of success would be very small if he tried to break through by piling resources. He couldn't make the level 21 liquid like before. According to Yi Xian's deduction, the success rate of making the liquid with the blood essence as the base was extremely high. However, to make a level 21 liquid, he would need at least 5 blood essences. Now, he already had 4 blood essences. He only needed 1 more. If he retreated now, this powerful forbidden land would be on guard. Even if he sneaked in again in a short period of time, he wouldn't be able to succeed in a sneak attack. Instead, it would allow the enemy to investigate thoroughly and then set up all kinds of defense measures. Of course, other than this forbidden area in the starry sky, there were also other forbidden areas in the surrounding areas of the Mulberry Tree Star region. However, Yi Xian had already searched for more than 10 days before encountering this place. Who knew how long it would take for him to find the next forbidden area in the starry sky? The best choice was to take advantage of the time before the 3 official level Undyings arrived and kill another Undying level beast as quickly as possible. This was indeed risky. After all, even if he succeeded in killing an Undying level beast, Yi Xian would need a certain amount of time to condense the blood essences on the spot. The fastest would be half a breath. And with the speed of the 3 marquee level Undyings, they would at most take 7 to 8 breaths to reach him and surround him. Following closely behind, the other 100 Undying level beast leaders would arrive soon. When that time comes, once the second layer of encirclement was formed, Yi Xian would be in an even worse situation. I'll give it my all. Isn't it just 3 marquee level Undyings? Even if there's an army of thousands, I will still advance. As long as there's a chance, I won't let it go. Fiercely gritting his teeth, Yi Xian's body suddenly flashed as he raised his head and roared, "See!" Before the roar had even ended, Yi Xian's body had already disappeared from the spot. He once again teleported with all his strength. In half a breath's time, he traversed hundreds of thousands of miles of space and appeared in front of a beast planet on the left. This beast planet was the closest to Yi Xian. Previously, a demonic blood-black jackal had already charged out from the atmosphere of this beast planet. It didn't use its extreme speed and instead deliberately slowed down. Obviously, it was waiting for the 3 marquee level Undyings to arrive and form the first layer of encirclement before charging forward. Alright. However, at this moment he didn't charge forward. Yi Xian took the initiative to close in and teleported. The moment he appeared, he immediately threw a punch. At this moment, Yi Xian's berserk energy surged out. The space around him crackled as if it was about to be torn apart at any moment. Rumble! This demonic blood-black jackal was caught off guard and didn't even have time to dodge. In the blink of an eye, its entire body was blasted into a bloody mist and swiftly exploded. Who? Without any hesitation, Yi Xian suddenly waved his hand and a Shen Nong 7-colored flame was drawn out from the Shen Nong cauldron within him. It completely enveloped the bloody mist that dispersed from the exploding demonic blood-black jackal and began the refinement of blood essence. Hell! See? Moo! Seeing this scene, the 3 marquee level Undyings in the distant space were enraged. They simultaneously roared and accelerated. In the blink of an eye, they had crossed close to 10 million miles. From the looks of it, they would arrive in at most 2 breaths of time. 2 breaths of time passed in the blink of an eye. Who? As Yi Xian suddenly waved his hand, the 7-colored flame in front of him was directly absorbed into his body. At the same time, he also took away an immortal level fierce beast blood essence that had just been condensed. Chapter 42:16. No matter who you are, today, you won't be able to escape. Moo! The green ox was the first to arrive. It was already less than 1,000,000 kilometers away from Yi Xian in the void of the universe. At this moment, a cold voice came out of its mouth, followed by a deep moo. Along with this roar, a green crescent moon slash that was over 3,000 meters long whizzed through the air and cut open the void in its path. Boundless void turbulence gushed out from the cracks and threw the surrounding starry sky into chaos. Boom! Boom! Roar! 1,000,000 miles behind the green ox, the insectoid with an unknown bloodline suddenly let out a fierce roar. A circle of ripples swept out, moving even faster than the green ox's cyan half-moonlight slash. In an instant, it enveloped an area of 10 million miles, covered a huge area of space. A formless binding force came. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly felt his body become sluggish. Even someone as strong as him felt like he was stuck in an endless swamp. Without a doubt, this strange circle of ripples had a special sealing effect on the universe space. Under its power, not to mention a normal Undying, even an official level Undying couldn't teleport. This was clearly to trap Yi Xian here at the first possible moment and prevent him from escaping. Moreover, as the weird ripples spread out and covered the entire void within thousands of kilometers, The insect with an unknown bloodline had clearly succeeded. Hong. A little closer, about 1,000,000 kilometers to the right of the void, the starry sky blood crocodile, who was at the 4th level of the Marquis Immortal Realm, didn't say a word. However, its huge crocodile tail, which was full of ferocious barbs, suddenly swung. In an instant, the void exploded with thunder, and an invisible and terrifying shockwave shot towards Yixin. It shot over from the distance. There were also sharp barbs on the crocodile tail. This was the talent of an official level undying. Each barb seemed insignificant, but Yixin didn't doubt its sharpness at all. Even if a superstar was in front of him, it would be pierced into a sieve by these insignificant barbs. In the blink of an eye, the 3 Marquis Undying level ferocious beast commanders were all within 1,000,000 kilometers of Yixin. They launched a surprise attack from the left, right, and front one after another. However, because of the ripples caused by the mysterious arachnid, with Yixin's figure as the origin, the surrounding space within a radius of millions of kilometers had been completely sealed. Not only was he unable to teleport, even if he turned around to escape or dodge, his movements would become extremely sluggish as if he was stuck in a swamp. This seemed to be the end of his life. Seeing this scene, the 100 or so immortal-level beasts that followed closely behind the 3 Marquis Undyings immediately roared in excitement, as if they were certain that Yixin wouldn't be able to escape this calamity. In fact, at this moment, Yixin's heart was in his throat. The reason why he was so determined to stay and continue hunting for the 5th Undying level beast blood essence was because he was actually quite confident. This confidence came from his interstellar coordinate jump ability. Previously, when he set off from Sangji Starfield, he had already left an interstellar coordinate jump mark in a remote space near a forbidden area in Sangji Starfield. Facing the 3 official level Undyings approaching at extreme speed, Yixin wanted to rely on his interstellar coordinate jump ability to disappear from this place and return to Sangji Starfield. However, the bloodline ripple ability of that unknown bug clan bloodline more than 1,000,000 miles to the left was too strange. Even with his level 1 official level Undying's cultivation base, he felt his body become heavy, as if he was stuck in a swamp. Because of this, Yixin suddenly lost his confidence. If this ability had the same effect on his interstellar coordinate jump ability, then he would be in big trouble today. Unless the headless infant corpse made a move, even if he didn't die, he would at least lose a layer of skin. While feeling apprehensive, Yixin didn't hesitate to immediately order the devouring system in his body to activate the interstellar coordinate jump ability. This time, the jump coordinate was the one he had imprinted on the Mulberry G star field not long ago. Shoo! A weak sound broke through the air, and Yixin's 30-meter-tall space violent ape body disappeared in the blink of an eye. There was no trace to be found, as if it was suddenly erased from this world. Moo! Li! Howl! This scene infuriated the 3 Marquis-level Undyings who had just arrived. Their earth-shattering roars and howls resounded incessantly. On the hundreds of ferocious beast planets in the distance, countless powerful space beasts were all scared to the point of prostrating themselves on the ground, trembling at this time. Hundreds of millions of miles away in Sangji Star Field, a weak light flashed, and the 30-meter-tall space violent ape appeared instantly. You didn't disappoint this Star Master. After letting out a long breath, Yixin immediately dispelled the true form of the 3-headed, 6-armed devil ape and returned to his human form. Thinking back to the critical situation just now, he still felt a slight palpitation in his heart. Shoo! The next moment, as he waved his hand, Yixin directly took out the farmer god cauldron in his body. With a flash of his body, he arrived at the entrance of the farmer god cauldron, which was enshrouded in 9-colored fog, and sat down cross-legged. With a flip of his hand, 5 blood essence beads, each the size of an infant's fist, appeared in the palm of his right hand. These 5 blood essence beads would be the basic materials for Yixin to refine the level 21 liquid, along with the flesh treasure pulp refined from the remains of the quasi-primordial almighty Luan Phoenix treasure body. In addition to these 2 basic materials, according to the formula of the level 21 liquid that Yixin had deduced, this time, Yixin would also add a large amount of top-grade precious materials and medicines, as well as a few drops of the all-evil origin liquid and other top-grade body-forging resources in his possession. Although Yi Xian's experience in concocting the gene cultivation liquid was already impressive, as he had already concocted several vials of the level 20 liquid in one go. However, the method of concocting the level 21 liquid this time was completely different from before. He would use the method of refining the flesh-grade medicine to concoct the gene cultivation liquid. For him, this was the first time he had concocted the gene cultivation liquid in such a way. In addition, the gap between ordinary undying and marquee undying was like an invisible moat, and there were simply too many variables. Therefore, even Yi Xian himself wasn't very confident about the success of concocting the level 21 liquid this time. He could only say that it was 50-50 and that it was just a try. Chapter 42:17. Inside the Farmer God Cauldron, at the bottom of the central domain volcano. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Faint sounds of breaking through the air rang out continuously. Streaks of dim light shot out from the cauldron above the central domain volcano and appeared directly above the flame pool at the bottom of the volcano. After a sudden pause, the streaks of light that shot over instantly stopped in midair. Shockingly, they were the various top-notch materials and cultivation resources that Yi Xian had prepared for the refinement of the level 21 liquid. The flesh and blood elixir refined from the remains of the quasi-desolation almighty Luan Phoenix. 5 drops of immortal-level ferocious beast blood essences. 5 drops of evil origin elixir. And various other top-grade materials and medicines. All of them were the various resources that Yi Xian had deduced with the help of the devouring system in his body. Whoosh! The sound of flames whistling rang out. From the flame pool below, a majestic Shinong 7-colored flame whizzed up. In an instant, it condensed into a 7-colored cauldron with a radius of 3 meters. It was small and simple, and it exuded an extraordinary aura. In the next instant, as the small flame cauldron formed purely from the farmer god's 7-colored flame, the 5 drops of immortal-level ferocious beast blood essences and other materials and resources that shot out from the mouth of the farmer god cauldron automatically flew up and entered this small flame cauldron that was only about 10 feet in radius. From then on, the refinement of the level 21 liquid began instantly. Not far away, the 8 great guardian deities, Flying Centipede, Patriarch Silver G, and the others who were originally in seclusion were already alarmed. They all walked out of their seclusion cave abodes and stared blankly at the 7-colored cauldron above the flame pool at the center of the central domain volcano. They all looked at each other with puzzlement on their faces. At the same time, there was also a look of great anticipation on their faces. They were even whispering to each other and discussing in private. Boss is doing something big again. Is he going to refine purplish gold top-grade flesh and blood elixirs this time? I don't think so. There's still so much left from last time. He can't possibly use it all up in such a short time. And this time, he didn't use the remains of any powerful primordial creatures at all. Instead, I see many top-grade materials and medicines, and there seem to be 5 drops of blood essences. Don't tell me they're all refined from immortal-level ferocious beasts' flesh and blood? What is this? The flesh elixir is the real good stuff. I heard Boss say that it was refined from the remains of a Luan Feng bird. When Boss concocted the level 19 and level 20 elixir, he would use 1 tube each time. This time, he actually used 5 tubes. Hiss! Boss can't be concocting. No, it should be refining. He can't be refining a level 21 liquid, right? That should be the case. Boss's cultivation base has already reached the 9th level of the sempiternal realm. It's indeed time for him to consume the level 21 elixir. My God! The level 21 liquid. 1 bottle and it created an official level undying warrior. Old Centipede, you're not far from this level. Compared to our leader, you're only 2 small levels away. They all looked at Flying Centipede, who was an ordinary level 8 undying warrior. Although this old man didn't say anything, his heaving chest and the burning light in his eyes betrayed his inner feelings. He was so excited that he couldn't be more excited. Boom! 2 hours later, a loud roar resounded above the flame pool. It attracted the gazes of the Flying Centipede, Old Monster Silver G, the 8 great guardian deities, and the others in an instant. At this moment, all 10 of them had burning eyes. They even subconsciously held their breaths and paused for a moment. Along with the huge roar, the cauldron formed by the pure Shinong seven-colored flame above the flame pool dissipated instantly. A stream of seven-colored flames whizzed back to the flame pool below like a river. What remained above the flame pool were two round beads the size of infant fists. Although they were the same size as the blood essence of the fierce beasts, they were completely different. The blood essence was blood red and emitted dense qi and blood energy. As for these two round beads, although they were also the size of infant fists, they emitted seven-colored lights. There was a dreamy halo on the surface of the beads, emitting an ancient and heavy aura. Level 21 elixir. To be precise, it should be a level 21 elixir. In the past, the elixir produced using the method of genetic cultivation fluid was liquid in tubes, so it was called elixir. Now, using the method of refining flesh and blood medicine, the final product was solid, like elixir pills, so it was called elixir pills. However, the effect was the same. It allowed cultivators who walked the path of body cultivation to break through a large human potential shackle when they reached the peak of the 9th stage of the major realm. From there, they could smoothly step into the next major realm. There are actually two level 21 elixirs. At this moment, Yi Xian's voice sounded from the mouth of the Shinong cauldron above the volcano in the central region, revealing a strong sense of surprise. Originally, he thought that it would be good enough if he could successfully refine the level 21 elixir this time. He had only expected to get one elixir. However, in the end, not only did he successfully refine the elixir, but he also obtained two level 21 elixirs. This was definitely an unexpected surprise. It was only now that he suddenly realized. He had previously underestimated the effect of the Shinong seven-colored flame on various elixirs. The reason why he could obtain two level 21 elixirs this time was obviously because of the Shinong seven-colored flame. However, none of this was important. For Yi Xian, what was important was that he could break through to the first stage of the Marquis realm from the peak of the 9th stage of the Immortal realm to the first stage of the Marquis realm in an instant if he swallowed one of the two level 21 elixirs in front of him. This wasn't the strength of the Marquis realm after activating the demon ape bloodline in his body and manifesting the true form of the three-headed six-armed demon ape. This was a realm that he could reach in his normal state, which was absolutely different. Whoosh! The next moment, a high-grade small space box shot out from the mouth of the Shinong cauldron above the volcano in the central region. After entering the belly of the volcano, it directly took one of the two level 21 elixirs into it. Then it whizzed back and was carefully stored in Yi Xian's body. Immortal Realm. Domain. This was a level 21 elixir, which could make a Marquis realm from the peak of the 9th stage of the Immortal realm to the Marquis realm in an instant. For the large races and top powers in the three main dimensions of the universe, a level 20 elixir that could make an undying old monster was enough to drive them crazy, let alone a level 21 elixir that could make an undying old monster. If this news spread, even the emperors and emperors of the large races and top powers would be shocked. Chapter 42:18. Yi Xian stored one of the two level 21 pills in a small, high-grade spatial bottle. He kept it in his undying world immediately to prevent any loss of medicinal efficacy. As for the other one, it was still floating 100 meters above the pool of flames at the bottom of the central domain volcano. But very quickly, as Yi Xian put away the other level 21 pill, the second pill transformed into a ray of light that passed through the mouth of the volcano in the central region and shot towards the horizon. Yi Xian's cultivation base was now at the peak of the Immortal Realm level 9. He had already met the requirement to consume the level 21 pill. Therefore, he planned to consume it immediately and push his cultivation base to the level 1 Marquis Immortal Realm. Many people would never be able to cross this threshold in their lifetime. It was a threshold that many people were not qualified to cross. Flying centipedes and old monster Silver G's expressions changed at the sight of this. Especially Flying Centipede. He raised his head and shouted anxiously, "Boss, I've also reached the level 8 Immortal Realm." In other words, he wanted to remind Yi Xian that he still had one more breakthrough before he could consume the level 21 pill. Coincidentally, Yi Xian had two of them. They were on the same side. It was better to keep the goodies within the family. Yes, yes, yes. Just as the Flying Centipede finished his sentence, Old Monster Silver Crest quickly added, "Boss, Old Centipede is right. He's still one small stage away from breaking through. As for me, although I'm only at level 2 of the Immortal Realm, I'm about to reach level 3. Counting the distance, I'm about to reach level 9. Level 9 Immortal Realm. Actually, it's not that far. Get lost. You're only at the early stage of the Immortal Realm. Do you want to snatch the level 21 pill from me? Flying Centipede was enraged when he heard Old Monster Silver G's words. He kicked Old Monster Silver G to the ground. It made sense. When he was captured by Yi Xian and locked in the prison at the bottom of the Central Domain volcano, he was already at the level 6 Marquee Immortal Realm. However, Old Monster Silver G was only at the half-step Immortal Realm. Flying Centipede had witnessed his breakthrough into the Immortal Realm with his own eyes. Now that he didn't even have a single level 21 pill in his hands, he actually wanted to interfere. How could he tolerate this? In fact, even the eyes of the 8 Vidra who were merely sector lords turned red when they saw the level 21 pill in Yi Xian's hand. As soon as old Freak Inji finished his words, they wanted to say something to make their presence known. Although their cultivation base was far weaker than Old Freak Inji's, after all, Old Freak Inji had been with Old Freak Inji for a long time. Perhaps Old Freak Inji would really give it to them. But now, when they saw that even Silver Pole had been kicked to the ground, all 8 of them shrunk their necks and didn't dare to make a sound. Old Monster Silver G was an Immortal Realm expert after all. If the 8 sector lords jumped out and wanted to snatch the level 21 pill from Flying Centipede, this old man would probably go crazy on the spot. This level 21 pill will be kept by this Star Lord for now. Just when Old Monster Silver G crawled up from the ground, Yi Xian's voice came from the sky above the volcano. This kind of top-notch resource can be used by anyone who has reached a certain cultivation level in the future. This extra one should belong to Flying Centipede soon. Alright? But it doesn't matter. If the Star Lord can refine 1 cauldron, I can refine 2 cauldrons, 3 cauldrons, or even more. I will gradually store them in the future. All you need to do is to cultivate diligently and raise your cultivation level as soon as possible. You're really giving it to me? Ha ha ha. The moment Yi Xian finished speaking, Flying Centipede jumped up from the bottom of the volcano in the central region and laughed loudly. Thank you, boss. Thank you, boss. At the side, whether it was Old Monster Silver G or the 8 Vidra who were merely sector lords, they all looked at him with resentment. After sighing for a while, they didn't say anything else and turned around to return to their respective cave residences. They were all clearly agitated and were about to enter seclusion again and go crazy. They were going to cultivate crazily. At the entrance of Shunnong Cauldron, Yi Xian sat cross-legged in the 9-colored mist at the entrance of the cauldron. In his hand, he held a 7-colored bead that was the size of an infant's fist. It was the level 21 pill that he had just refined. He took a deep breath and adjusted his emotions. Once he had completely calmed down, he no longer hesitated. With a lift of his hand, he directly tossed the level 21 pill into his mouth. The moment the pill entered his mouth, it instantly transformed into a warm current that flowed down Yi Xian's throat. After entering his stomach, it automatically circulated rapidly in all his limbs and bones in his body. Everything was familiar to him. The only difference was that as he was advancing from an ordinary undying to a marquee undying, Yi Xian's body was stimulated by the medicinal power of the level 21 pill. The invisible shackles of the human body's potential were especially thick and strong. The clanking sounds of the shackles were especially ear-piercing. As for the warm current formed by the medicinal power of the level 21 pill, when it circulated rapidly in his body, the piercing pain it brought was even more intense. However, all of this wasn't a problem to him. Time slowly passed by. Yi Xian's entire mind was focused on this breakthrough. Unknowingly, an entire day had passed. When the scorching energy circulating endlessly in his body finally disappeared completely, Yi Xian subconsciously opened his eyes. In his mind, the familiar system notification didn't sound. This made his heart skip a beat. At first, he thought that this breakthrough had failed, which meant that he could only take another level 21 pill. This was too much of a waste. After all, it wasn't an ordinary resource. However, in the next moment, a muffled sound of thunder suddenly came from the sky above his head. Looking up, he saw an extremely dense tribulation cloud condensing. He immediately understood. It seemed that from the Marquis Undying level onwards, even if one's cultivation had already broken through, one still had to endure a round of tribulation before it could be considered a true breakthrough. This didn't matter as long as he didn't fail. Screech! As his heart relaxed, Yi Xian raised his head and let out a screech. He stood up and waved his hand to put away the Shenong cauldron under his feet. After that, he directly charged towards the dense tribulation cloud that covered an area of 10,000 miles. Rumble! Kacha! In the next moment, an earth-shattering explosion of thunder sounded out, followed closely by an incomparably clear sound of lightning. A blazing bolt of lightning that was over 30 meters thick instantly smashed down and landed on Yi Xian's body. Chapter 42:19. The lightning that struck down from the lightning tribulation was light gold in color. It was 30 meters thick and completely submerged Yi Xian's entire body. After all, it was the heavenly tribulation of a marquis, so the destructive power contained within the lightning tribulation was truly terrifying. Even with Yi Xian's strong body, he was charred on the outside and tender on the inside. Fortunately, there was only one wave of tribulation lightning this time. Otherwise, even he would have to suffer a great deal of it. When the thick black tribulation clouds in the distant sky above his head dispersed, Lin Xian waved his hand. The clothes on his body, which had been destroyed by the tribulation lightning, instantly looked brand new. At this moment, the familiar sound of the system notification rang out in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for making a breakthrough in the ancient Dongshu formula. Current level. Level 1 Marquis Immortal. Ding! Congratulations to the host for making a breakthrough in the body's energy and blood. Current level. Level 1 Marquis Immortal. This time, not only did the great heavenly tribulation of the immortal stage not cause the slightest bit of damage to his original body, it even caused the remaining level 21 pills in his body, as well as the medicinal effects of various top-notch heavenly and earthly treasures, to be completely stimulated. In an instant, Yi Xian's cultivation was completely consolidated and stabilized. He was stubborn. Before this, his original body strength was at the peak of level 9 of the immortal realm. Once he activated the bloodline of the ancient demon ape with 3 heads and 6 arms, his strength soared again, directly reaching level 1 of the Marquis Immortal realm. If he performed the 9 demon ape transformation and reached the 6th transformation, he would instantly reach level 7 of the Marquis Immortal realm. Now, as his original strength broke through again, he reached level 1 of the Marquis Immortal realm. As for the current Yi Xian, once he activated the Devil Ape bloodline in his body and entered the 6th transformation of the Devil Ape, his peak combat strength would be able to reach the 8th level of the Immortal realm. He was only a small breakthrough away from the 9th level of the Immortal realm. Even to the point where he could feel the terrifying strength of an Emperor-level Undying, he was only 2 levels away from it. After activating the Demon Ape bloodline and entering the Demon Ape true form with 3 heads and 6 arms, and performing the 6th transformation of the 9 Demon Ape transformation bloodline, his peak battle strength has reached the 8th level of Marquis Immortal. As he felt the boundless and terrifying energy within his body, Yi Xian muttered to himself, "If I add on the Fallen Sky Bow and other supreme abilities, as well as the Shinong Cauldron and other powerful treasures, even if it's an undying emperor, this Star Master will be able to fight him head-on. Even if the enemy is only at Emperor level 1 to 3, killing him in battle isn't impossible. Unless you meet a late-stage Emperor level 7 to 9, you have to flee, because you can't win unless the infant corpse attacks." As he spoke to hear, Yi Xian tightly clenched his fists. An incomparably strong sense of confidence suddenly surfaced in his heart. However, that's all it is. A vast expanse of space within a radius of 10 billion kilometers is more than enough. Like that powerful forbidden land from before, if it descends again, even if I face the 3 Marquis Immortal Realm Beast Commanders at the same time, I'm confident I can kill them one by one. After all, none of them are at level 8 of the Marquis Immortal Realm. However, I can't be reckless. If I really do that, I'm afraid it'll attract the attention of the other forbidden lands, which won't be good for me. Officially attacking these forbidden lands should wait until I reach Emperor level. Even if I do it while using the 6th transformation of the Demon Ape, that's fine too. If that's the case, I'll only need 2 small steps to break through. It won't take long, so there's no need to rush. Speaking to this point, Yi Xian seemed to suddenly recall something, raising his hand to slap his forehead. I almost forgot about the heaven-swallowing treasure body. Even though I have to stay in the mulberry tree star field on one hand, I have to train in seclusion to raise my cultivation level. On the other hand, I have to supervise the 20,000 demon scouts, as well as the tens of millions of survivors in the 12 tribes of the mulberry tree star field. However, the devouring body doesn't have this restriction. Just like in the 3 main star fields, I can let him leave and start devouring to raise his cultivation level rapidly. Furthermore, since this doppelganger was formed through the doppelganger system attached to the devouring system, its innate attributes are incomparably powerful. Now that my original body's cultivation base has made another breakthrough, if I'm not mistaken, the cultivation base of the devouring doppelganger should have synchronized with my original body. Like me, with the strength of a level 1 marquee immortal realm, as long as I'm careful, I should be able to go anywhere in this space. Speaking to this point, Yi Xian didn't hesitate anymore. With a thought, another Yi Xian stepped out from his body. They looked exactly the same. It was the devouring body that had returned not long ago. At such a close distance, the consciousness of the original body and the clone were originally synchronized in real time. What Yi Xian's original body was thinking, the devouring clone completely understood. Immediately, the original body and the clone's gazes met, and they nodded to each other. Then, the devouring body didn't hesitate anymore. It turned into a meteor and flew away in the blink of an eye. This time, Yi Xian didn't let him take any of the treasures, including the Weeping Soul Blood Horn and the Tower of Desolation. He left them all with the original body. After all, the devouring body left this time only to devour all kinds of energy to strengthen itself. Moreover, the cultivation level of the body was synchronized with that of the original body, reaching level 1 marquee immortal realm. With such strength, as long as he didn't go further than 10 billion miles in this space, he wouldn't encounter any danger in the central region. Even if there was danger, even if he encountered a powerful beast at the middle or late stage of marquee immortal realm, with the devouring body's monstrous strength and the invincible war god, even if he couldn't defeat the beast, he could still retreat. Yi Xian was very confident about this. He wasn't worried at all. The devouring body has left. I'm sure when he returns, he'll bring me a huge surprise. Yi Xian muttered to himself as he looked in the direction of the devouring clone. As for the main body, this Star Master's most important mission in this period of time is to push his cultivation from the current 1st level of the Marquee Immortal to the 3rd level of the Marquee Immortal. Then, once I activate the demonic ape bloodline in my body, I'll have the strength of level 4 Marquee Immortal Realm. If I can perform the 6th transformation of the demonic ape 9 transformation bloodline, then my battle strength will instantly reach level 1 Marquee Immortal Realm. With the battle strength of an Marquee Immortal Realm expert, there will be few opponents in this vast space of 10 billion miles. At that time, I believe the overall strength of my 20,000 demon scouts and the tens of millions of survivors on Sangji Star will increase by another level. Chapter 42:20. By the time Yi Xian returned to Mulberry Orchid, the second planet-wide craze for refining flesh medicine was already over. All of the ferocious beast flesh and blood from the 6 great forbidden zones of the Void Territory within a 100 million mile radius were refined into great flesh and blood medicine, and all of it was distributed. Tens of millions of survivors of the Desolation Era in the 12 tribes of the Mulberry Tree Star and the thousands of villages of various sizes had all entered a state of seclusion. They were breaking through the bottlenecks of their cultivation and rapidly improving their strength. The 20,000 demon scouts led by Guihai Yidao and Song Qingyu were also in seclusion in the Wild Dragon Fortress. Even the 8 Vajras, the flying centipede, and old monster Inji were in seclusion. There was also Yi Xian's cosmic warships, such as the tens of millions of ferocious mosquito beasts led by the Mosquito Emperor Shueben, as well as the many slimes, weeping soul apes, and so on. Yi Xian had also distributed cultivation resources suitable for them. Now, Yi Xian had stored all of the warships in his undying world. The kinetic races within the warships had all entered hibernation as well, using this method to transform their bloodlines and promote their own evolution. Yi Xian was quite satisfied with all of this. In truth, the 12 great tribes on Mulberry Orchid had each left over 10,000 tribesmen to await Yi Xian's arrival and guard the perimeter of the planet. However, after Yi Xian returned, he directly sent all of them into closed-door cultivation. In an instant, the entire mulberry tree star became completely silent. All of the survivors of the primordial era entered seclusion as if they were in a dormant state. They were as quiet as an abandoned planet. Yi Xian quickly charged out of Mulberry Orchid's atmosphere and sat down cross-legged in space tens of millions of kilometers away. He took out large amounts of materials and began to refine the grade 20 medicine. Now that he'd refined a grade 21 pill, it was naturally a walk in the park for him to refine the grade 20 medicine the same way as before. His goal was to refine 100 vials. That way, he wouldn't have enough materials. On the other hand, there were a lot of supplementary materials. The number of top-notch precious materials in Yi Xian's hands could be said to be an ocean. The key was that there wasn't much flesh and blood left from the Luanfeng bird that was at the level of the ancient Luanfeng. But it didn't matter. He still had a lot of corpses of primordial beings at the level of primordial beings. He just took one out and spent half a day to refine more than 100 vials of blood and flesh paste. With this and the other top-grade precious materials and medicines he had, Yi Xian had more than enough to refine 100 vials of the grade 20 medicine. The grade 20 medicine could create immortal old monsters. The reason why Yi Xian wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to concoct 100 tubes at once was because the number of old monsters under his command was increasing. Just the survivors of the primordial era on Mulberry Tree alone numbered more than 30. Not long after, Bachai, Guihai Dao, Tsang Qingyu, and the Mosquito Prince, Shueben, the 8 great guardian warriors, and the others would also step into the universe grade. Naturally, it wouldn't be so fast on the 3 main star planes of the current era. However, there was a blood medicine here. Furthermore, it was refined by Yi Xian using the Shinong 7-colored flame and the blood and flesh of immortal grade dire beasts. The effect was simply too strong. It greatly increased the cultivation speed of Guihai Dao and the other subordinates. Once the cultivation base of these subordinates reached the Universe 9 grade, they would need a vial of level 20 liquid. Of course, they wouldn't need the level 20 liquid. They could also break through and ascend to the immortal grade using their own cultivation techniques or bloodline evolution. However, that would be too slow. They would have to wait and see. Fate. If they had a vial of the grade 20 vials, they could follow the path of body tempering and use body tempering to evolve their bloodline and cultivation techniques. Breaking through to the immortal grade from the universe grade 9 great perfection was just around the corner. Yi Xian had prepared 100 vials of the grade 20 vials for Guihai Dao and the other subordinates. According to his estimation, 100 vials would only be enough for a short period of time. As time passed, it would definitely be far from enough. By then, there would be more than 100 immortal grade old monsters under Yi Xian's command. In the current era's 3 main star planes, they would definitely be comparable to a powerful tribe with a long history or a top-notch power. Even in this void fragment from the ancient desolate era, they would be able to compete with some of the more powerful forbidden areas in the starry skies. It took Yi Xian an entire month to complete the 100 vials of the grade 20 vials of the grade 20 vials. This speed was already very fast. It was equivalent to 3 vials a day. If the grade 20 vials of the grade 20 vials were considered the birth of an immortal grade old monster, then Yi Xian was equivalent to creating 3 immortal grade old monsters a day. This was absolutely frightening. Furthermore, during this month, he would be struck by tribulation lightning 3 or 4 times a day. This was because the grade 20 vials of the grade 20 vials had a liquid tribulation. Every time the grade 20 vials were born, it would be accompanied by a liquid tribulation. Every time, although the main body of the liquid tribulation was the newly concocted grade 20 vials, Yi Xian, as the concoction master, naturally wouldn't be affected. Of course, he wouldn't be spared. In this month, he experienced 100 vials of the liquid tribulation. In the end, he was almost used to being struck by the heavenly lightning. And all of this obviously had its benefits. When this month was about to end, Yi Xian's original cultivation base of rank 1 Marquis Immortal Grade actually broke through to rank 2 Marquis Immortal Grade after 1 vials of the liquid tribulation. After being struck by lightning for more than 100 vials, his cultivation base actually broke through. This kind of thing was probably unheard of. Even when Yi Xian thought about it, He couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. After this breakthrough, his true battle strength increased greatly again. Before this, his original body strength was at rank 1 Marquis Immortal Grade 2. Once he activated the 3-headed, 6-armed ancient demon ape bloodline, his strength soared again, directly reaching rank 2 Marquis Immortal Grade. If he used the 9 demon ape transformation and reached the 6th transformation, he would instantly reach rank 8 Marquis Immortal Grade. And now, his original cultivation base had another breakthrough, reaching rank 2 Marquis Immortal Grade. Once the current Yi Xian activated the Devil Ape bloodline in his body and entered the 6th transformation of the Devil Ape, his peak combat strength would reach the 9th level of the Immortal Marquis realm. He was only a small step away from breaking through to the 1st level of the Immortal Marquis realm. He wasn't in a hurry to break through this last small step, so he decided to wait for 1 year to do it. That's right, 1 year. This 1 year wasn't for himself but for Gui Haidao, Cang Qingyu, and the rest of the 20,000 demon scouts, as well as the tens of millions of survivors on Sangji Star, to break through their cultivation bases. After all, Yi Xian was the only one who had reached the 1st level of the Immortal Emperor. As for the subordinates under him, their cultivation levels were still the same as before. The 2nd expedition that they had been anticipating was also impossible to carry out. Chapter 42-21. Within a month, Yi Xian had worked hard to concoct 100 vials of level 20 liquid. This meant that he would have 100 immortal level subordinates in the future. It was absolutely significant. Even his own cultivation had successfully broken through again after experiencing an entire 100 liquid tribulations. The current Yi Xian was already an old monster at the 2nd level of the Immortal Marquis realm. If he activated the Demon Ape bloodline in his body and performed the 6th transformation of the 9 Demon Ape transformation bloodline ability, his battle strength would reach the pinnacle of level 9 Immortal level. He was only 1 level away from having the battle strength of an Immortal level Emperor. Yi Xian wasn't in a hurry to make this breakthrough. He had been making breakthroughs too frequently recently, so he needed to consolidate his state of mind. Therefore, Yi Xian decided to use the remaining time to deduce the formula of level 22 elixir pills. After all, it might be useful soon. But now, he hadn't even figured out the formula of level 22 elixir pills, let alone concoct them. This was really inexcusable. The formula of the gene cultivation fluid would become more and more difficult to deduce as one progressed. Moreover, there was a dividing line between level 20 liquid and level 21 liquid. Before level 20 liquid, the formula of each level would become more and more difficult to deduce, but the difficulty was still bearable. However, from level 21 onwards, the difficulty of the formula deduction increased more and more with each level. It was simply to the extent that it made one's hair stand on end. Yi Xian didn't spend too much time on the level 21 liquid. With his powerful immortal level spirit sense and the powerful calculation ability of the devouring system in his body, it only took him a few days to deduce the formula of the level 21 liquid. But now, after a whole month, there was still no clue as to how to deduce the formula of the level 22 liquid. However, the more it was like this, the more Yi Xian refused to believe it. His entire mind was immersed in it as he fully activated the powerful divine sense of the Immortal Marquis realm. Coupled with the powerful calculation ability of the devouring system in his body, he was constantly deducing and had long since entered a state where he forgot about everything. Time passed slowly. Unknowingly, another 10 months had passed. Including the previous 2 months, it was close to a year. There were only a few more days left. Yi Xian had already deduced the perfect formula of the level 22 liquid 4 months ago. It took him 6 months, which was half a year. It was just a formula for a level 22 liquid, yet it took so long to deduce it. This caused Yi Xian to be greatly shocked. Without a doubt, the subsequent formula of the level 23 liquid would be even more difficult to deduce. This made Yi Xian feel a strong sense of urgency. Because of this, he didn't stop after he successfully deduced the formula of the level 22 liquid 4 months ago. While the iron was still hot, he started to deduce the formula of the subsequent formula of the level 23 liquid. Now, the formula of the level 23 liquid had been deduced for 4 months. Although it had not been completely deduced, it was at least more than half of it. At this time, the previously scheduled one-year rest period was about to end. There were only a few days left, so he temporarily stopped the deduction. He planned to find some free time in the future. When he had free time, he immediately followed up on this matter. Yi Xian planned to use the last few days to make a breakthrough in his cultivation. Now, he only needed to make a small breakthrough. Once he entered the 6th transformation of the 9 Devil Ape transformation, he would have the battle strength of an Emperor level 1. This was also a watershed which was extremely important. After this breakthrough, a new round of comprehensive punitive expedition would begin again. It had been more than a year since he came to this broken void of the desolate ancient world. The day when the desolate ancient world fully descended could come at any time. Yi Xian's sense of urgency was getting stronger and stronger. He had to improve the cultivation strength of himself and his subordinates as soon as possible. At this time, after close to a year of seclusion, the originally quiet Mulberry Star thousands of miles away was bustling again. After a year of seclusion, the cultivation strength of tens of millions of desolate ancient survivors in the 12 large tribes and thousands of mountain villages on Mulberry Star had improved greatly. As far as the eye could see, there were as many universe almighties as there were dogs. Star lords and domain lords were everywhere. There were even more than 100 realm lords. This time, more than 20 universe-grade powerhouses had appeared. However, the dozens of universe-old monsters who had universe-grade cultivation strength a year ago were still in seclusion and hadn't come out yet. It would probably be a few days before they appeared. Seeing all of this, Yi Xian was completely at ease. He immediately left Sangji Star and didn't even stay in the nearby 10 million kilometers. Instead, he went to a forbidden area that was tens of millions of kilometers away that had been exterminated a year ago. He planned to break through in seclusion here. He deliberately stayed far away because he was worried that his breakthrough would cause too much of a commotion. If the pressure of a level 3 Marquis Immortal spread and affected some of the survivors on Mulberry Star who were still in seclusion and in the midst of breaking through, that wouldn't be good. Yes, whoosh! With a flash of his body, Yi Xian's figure landed on an abandoned planet in the forbidden area of the starry sky. He casually found a mountain peak and sat down cross-legged at the top of it. Then, he waved his hand and took out a large amount of items, including several drops of evil origin liquid and 100 cubic meters of top-grade purple-gold flesh medicine, cultivation resources. After swallowing them, he closed his eyes and began his breakthrough. At the same time, just tens of millions of miles away from Mulberry Star, Yi Xian left Mulberry Star and hid in another direction to begin his breakthrough in a forbidden space tens of millions of miles away. Huge starry fleets also broke through the dim light screen. From behind the light screen, the gray world. One by one, the dark world began to descend upon this place. These fleets were the fleets of various races that had entered the passageway to the desolate ancient world in the Shadow Devil Star region of the second universe. Of course, not all of the fleets had passed through the dim light screen and descended in the Mulberry Star region. Some fleets had gone in other directions of the dark world and hadn't come here yet. Apart from some fleets of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and small forces, the fleets that had come this time were mainly from the various races of the second universe. Apart from the top 10 races and the Dark Turtle tribe of the Sealing race, the fleets of the other 9 races had all arrived. In addition, the Myriad Race Alliance of the First Universe had also formed a fleet that was heading in this direction. After a year of interstellar travel, they had also entered the Mulberry Star region. The fleets of the 9 races of the Second Universe each had a scale of tens of millions of battleships. In total, the number of battleships exceeded 100 million. Chapter 42-22. Although the total number of battleships that arrived was more than 100 million battleships, the dim light curtain that separated the gray world was extremely vast. Therefore, in just less than half a day, more than 130 million battleships of various races had passed through the light curtain and arrived at the Sangji star field. Outside the star field, more than 100 million battleships did not gather together. Instead, they were divided into 3 large groups. In front was the main force. There were more than 100 million battleships. They were vaguely divided into 9 small legions. They were the fleets of the 9 races of the Second Universe and their respective weaker races. Behind them, there were 2 small groups on the left and right. On one side was a fleet of about 20 million battleships from the alliance of 10,000 races in the first universe. On the other side was a miscellaneous army composed of various small forces and many rogue cultivator alliances. The number of battleships was only about 10 million. After the 3 camps, the 2 camps at the back had obviously become vassals. Even if they were unwilling to admit it, the truth was the truth. At this moment, the fleets of the 3 camps broke through the dim light curtain from the gray world and arrived at the Sangji star field. The 2 weaker camps, which had too few battleships, could only watch from a distance. In front of them, heading straight for the Sangji star field, were the 9 races of the second universe. There were more than 100 million battleships in this group. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that the 2 battleships behind had too few battleships, and that the overall strength of the 2 camps was far inferior, and there were several immortal old monsters in each of the 2 camps' fleets, the 9 races of the second universe, which had more than 100 million battleships in front of them, would have turned around long ago. Because they had swallowed the fleets of the 2 weaker camps that had been following behind them. In these 2 weaker camps, there were more than a dozen immortal old monsters. In front of the army of more than 100 million battleships from the 9 races of the second universe, the number of immortal old monsters was only about 30. If they turned around and wanted to swallow the 2 camps behind them, they would definitely force the 2 weaker camps to join forces. At that time, there would be more than 30 immortal old monsters on both sides, and the top battle strength would be equal. The balance of the battle was basically impossible for there to be any obvious conflict. It was precisely because of this reason that the internal strife between the 3 camps had never appeared. Previously, during the long and lonely year of space travel in that dark world, this kind of internal strife did not appear. Then, now that they had entered a new universe void, there was clearly a large amount of life aura in front of them, representing the appearance of external interests. This kind of internal strife naturally. Therefore, it was even more impossible for it to appear. However, the overall strength gap between the 3 camps at the battleship level was too great after all. Even if the spearhead was unanimously pointed outwards and tacitly divided the benefits in this strange starry sky, it was obvious that the leading 9 races coalition army of the second universe would eat the meat, and the weaker myriad races alliance army of the first universe would be at the back. The fleets of the alliance and the various rogue cultivator alliances followed behind, drinking the soup and eating the bones. Although this situation was infuriating, such was the situation. Even if he didn't want to admit it, he could only admit it. For example, at this moment, as soon as they descended into the starry sky of this universe and confirmed that there was a life star with a strong life aura in front of them, the 2 weaker fleets following behind had reached a consensus. They would not interfere in this first meal and would leave it to the 9 great races alliance of the second universe, which was leading in front of them. The army ate heartily. This was both a kind of helplessness and a kind of expression. Everyone was well aware of it, and they both tacitly agreed and accepted it. In front of them, the 9 great races alliance of the second universe, which had a total of more than 100 million battleships, was divided into 9 small legions. These 9 small legions were led by 9 of the top 10 great races, including the Dark Turtle Clan, the Blood Dragon Clan, the Green Rock Clan, the Battle Lion Clan, the Inji Clan, the Barbarian Bull Clan, the Golden Eagle Clan, the Colorful Python Clan, the Greedy Wolf Clan, and the Tree Spirit Clan. The fleets of the weaker races that did not belong to the top 10 great races were vassals. Basically, each of the 9 small legions had a fleet of more than 10 million, between 11 million and 12 million. As for the immortal old monsters, each of the 9 small legions had 3 to 4 of them. Right now, in the central flagship of each of the 9 small legions, there were 3 to 4 immortal old monsters gathered and holding a video conference. The object of the conference was Mulberry Star, which was less than 10 million miles ahead. The conference was very short. In less than 10 minutes, it was over. Because there was nothing to discuss at all, the more than 30 immortal old monsters from the various races of the second universe in the 9 small legions reached a consensus. They immediately took down the life star in front of them with lightning speed. However, because they had just arrived and were not familiar with the strange starry sky, they obviously needed a guide if they wanted to enter the deeper areas and plunder more resources. Therefore, although the main direction of the conference was that they had to surrender, the group of immortal old monsters had their own opinions on the method of surrender. Some advocated a total slaughter. It was enough to take away the resources and continue to move forward, rushing to the next life star. Some advocated to surrender. They regarded the life forms of this life star as a bridge to understand this strange starry sky. They wanted to absorb them and make them guides for the subsequent expeditions. In this way, they could conquer the strange and vast void faster. The final result of the vote was that more than 60% of the immortal old monsters were in favor of surrendering. This matter was settled, and there were no more objections. As the strongest of the 9 great races, the Blood Wyrm tribe naturally did not decline in this first battle when the Alliance army entered the strange star domain. The Blood Wyrm tribe sent 4 immortal old monsters this time, including the 3-clawed dragon, who had secretly surrendered to Yi Xian. At this moment, these 4 immortal old monsters had already gathered in the flagship main control room of the Blood Wyrm tribe's small fleet of battleships. Through the holographic 3-dimensional screen in front of them, they were looking at Mulberry Star, which was only 1,000,000 miles away. In addition, the powerful consciousness of the 4 immortal old monsters, including the Dragon-clawed dragon, had already extended out and swept the entire Mulberry Star across 1,000,000 miles of space. The result of the sweep of their consciousness made them somewhat excited. It seems that the people living on this planet are all remnants of the primordial era. There are quite a lot of them, at least tens of millions. Unfortunately, their cultivation is too weak. The strongest is only at the universe 9th level. Although there are dozens of them, it's obviously impossible for them to break through in the near future. TSK, TSK, TSK. There's not even a single immortal old monster. This old man is really not interested. There's no need to fight. Just surrender. Chapter 42-23. When the 100 million or so warships of the 3 camps that had descended on the Mulberry G space zone passed through the dim light curtain and invaded the Mulberry G space zone from the gray world on the other side of the light curtain, the survivors of the desolate antiquity era on the Mulberry G space zone noticed it immediately. As the huge fleet of the 3 great factions headed toward the Mulberry G star from the edge of the dim light screen, more than 30 high-ranking members of the 12 great tribes, who had been in seclusion, were awakened by the powerhouses of their respective tribes and came out of seclusion almost at the same time. However, they soon discovered that they couldn't contact their lord for the time being. This fleet of more than 100 million battleships clearly came from the same world as their lord. In other words, they were the most powerful fleets of the 3 main planes of the universe, and they were rapidly approaching. Faced with this situation, the 30-odd high-ranking members of the 12 great tribes, who had just come out of seclusion and were all at the peak of the universe 9th grade, panicked for a while. But very soon, when the 4 immortal old monsters of the Blood Wyrm clan unleashed their soul consciousness and swept across the entire Mulberry G star in an unbridled manner, they suddenly stopped panicking and regained their calm in just a few breaths of time. These 4 spirit consciousness auras were clearly only at the immortal realm. Since that was the case, what was there to be afraid of? Speaking of which, the 30-odd of them could be considered half-step immortal realm cultivators. In fact, their cultivation base was actually not much different from the other parties. Wasn't it just a few small ranks? In the past year of seclusion, which one of them hadn't broken through a few small ranks? In that case, the difference between them and these 4 fellows who had shrouded the Mulberry G star with their spirit consciousness was only about a year or so. If they had a year, they would definitely catch up with the other party. If they had another year, they would definitely leave the other party behind. How could there be any fear in his heart when he thought about it this way? Furthermore, there was an extremely powerful master behind the Mulberry G star. Even if 40 immortal old monsters attacked at the same time, they definitely wouldn't be a match, let alone 4 immortal old monsters. Half a day ago, their master had still been here, lingering in the void thousands of miles away in another direction, as if he was deducing something. Although they didn't know where he was now, it was obvious that he had only left temporarily. Perhaps he would return immediately after turning around. When this thought surfaced in their minds, the 30-odd high-ranking members of the tribes were completely certain. In fact, they weren't the only ones. On the entire Mulberry G star, tens of millions of survivors of the primordial era in the thousands of mountain villages of various sizes were all thinking the same thing. After all, Yi Xian's strength had been deeply rooted in their hearts. In just a few days, he had broken through the 6 forbidden zones and killed all the immortal rank ferocious beasts. All of this had left a deep impression on them. It could be said that, in the face of this powerful fleet of battleships, the tens of millions of survivors of the desolation on the Mulberry G-Star, after the initial brief panic, quickly calmed down and did not intend to pay any attention to it. They continued to do what they were supposed to do. Perhaps their lord would come back soon. Master would take care of it. It had nothing to do with them. The immortal realm was the primordial era immortal realm, survivors of millions of survivors of the various mountain villages in the various mountain villages' stronghold, after a brief moment, were stunned. Immortals of survivors of the mountain villages were, immediately immortal. Captive? Was this a joke? The commander of this powerful fleet was too funny. This so-called captive, was he talking about himself? That was probably it. Master had a bad temper. Taking advantage of his absence, he actually sent a fleet to capture tens of millions of his subordinates. What was even more infuriating was that the leader didn't even have the strength of an immortal marquis. A few ordinary immortals had come out to act tyrannically. There were so many of them. Master definitely wouldn't tolerate this. Thinking of this, the tens of millions of experts on the Mulberry Tree Star all showed gloating smiles on their faces. An incomparably joyful atmosphere quickly grew in the atmosphere of the entire star, spreading and spreading out. None of this escaped the divine senses of the immortal old monsters of the Blood Flood Dragon clan, and it was clearly reflected in their minds. In fact, the four of them weren't the only ones who saw this scene. At this moment, within the three camps that had already stopped a million miles away from Sangji Star, there were a total of over 60 undying old monsters, as well as even more universe old monsters, sector lord old monsters, domain lord old monsters, and star lord old monsters. At this moment, almost all of them had released their divine sense, or were just an honorable. Or they were secretly sweeping the scene in the atmosphere of the Mulberry G-Star. Therefore, there were simply too many great beings of the various clans who saw this scene. However, the scene captured by his divine sense was indeed too strange, facing the invasion of a powerful fleet of battleships, and their overall strength was far weaker than the enemy's. It could be said that the difference was too huge. There was no comparison at all. These survivors of the primordial era were actually in the mood to laugh, and it wasn't just one or two people who were laughing. Tens of millions of people spread across the entire star, without exception. They were all laughing. Such a strange scene instantly made everyone's jaws drop. The four immortal realm old monsters of the Blood Flood Dragon clan, who were in charge of this battle, even carefully scanned the entire life star in front of them with their divine consciousness, inside and out, with slight worry. They even did the same for some of the other abandoned stars around this star, to prevent overly powerful beings from lurking on these abandoned stars and being carelessly overlooked. However, the final result was not unusual at all. In the life star in front of them, with tens of millions of survivors of the primordial era, the most powerful beings were indeed more than 30 Universe Grade 9 Perfection Fellows. Moreover, these 30 half-step immortal old monsters were obviously the core higher-ups of more than a dozen top forces on this planet. This was the result of the divine senses sweep. It was clearly displayed. This result made the three-clawed Flood Dragon and the other immortal old monsters of the Blood WIRM clan feel completely relieved. While he heaved a sigh of relief in his heart, there was also a wave of anger that suddenly rose in his heart. As immortal old monsters, they were actually frightened by a group of primordial era survivors who obviously had some mental problems just now. If this matter were to spread, it would be really embarrassing. Even if it didn't spread, they obviously felt uncomfortable in their hearts, and their chests were stifled. Chapter 42-24. In the starry sky Forbidden Zone, tens of millions of miles away from Sangji Star, on the abandoned planet that Yi Xian had chosen to use for his seclusion breakthrough, Hua! Walala! At this moment, Yi Xian was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed on the peak of a giant mountain on this abandoned planet. Almost half a day had passed since he had started his seclusion cultivation. The few drops of all evil origin liquid he had swallowed earlier, as well as over 100 cubes of purple gold top-grade flesh medicine and other cultivation resources, had already surged and surged within his body after transforming into a vast wave of scorching energy. It had already circulated through several dozen great circulations of energy. During this time, the clanking sound of chains resounded within Yi Xian's body. An invisible shackle of the human body's potential had appeared within his body after he had swallowed these cultivation resources. As long as he could break through it and tear apart this shackle, Yi Xian's cultivation strength would make another small breakthrough. However, after his original body's cultivation strength had entered the marquee level, although there were still many shackles of the human body's potential remaining in his body, each one of them had become incomparably tough. They were far from the shackles that had appeared before he had become a marquee-level immortal, so they could be easily broken and torn apart. For half a day, Yi Xian had been enduring extreme pain from his body. The scorching energy that surged like a river in his body was burning every inch of his flesh and bone at almost every moment. If it wasn't for the fact that he had been through this before, he would have gotten used to this inhumane torture. This time, if it had been anyone else, they would have most likely failed in their breakthrough. For half a day, the clanking sound of the shackles in Yi Xian's body had not stopped for a single moment. This also meant that the pain he was enduring had not stopped for a single moment. However, at this moment, it was clear that everything was nearing its end. This breakthrough was about to end. Shoo! Shoo shoo shoo. A sound that was so faint that it was almost inaudible rang out. Yi Xian's body, which had been incomparably dim, suddenly burst forth with an endless radiance. At this moment, the 1,080,000,000 pores on the surface of his body were erupting with dazzling, auspicious, multicolored energy. His precious body was so dazzling that one couldn't look straight at it. The energy that was as boundless as a great river and as hot as magma that had been surging through his limbs and bones was finally completely exhausted at this moment. The clanging sounds of the chains that had been going on in his body for half a day came to a complete stop at this moment. Yi Xian opened his eyes. For the first time since he had broken through, there wasn't excitement in the depths of his eyes. Instead, there was a faint glow of exhaustion. This breakthrough had indeed taken far too much time, and during this period of time, he had been enduring unprecedented extreme pain at every moment. It was hard to explain in words. Fortunately, everything was over at this moment. With the arrival of the breakthrough, the familiar system notification rang in Yi Xian's mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the ancient void tactics. Current realm. Level 3 Marquee Immortal. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the physical body. Current realm. Level 3 Marquee Immortal. Before this, his original body strength was at Level 2 Immortal Realm. Once he activated the three-headed, six-armed ancient demon ape bloodline, his strength soared to Level 3 Marquee Immortal Realm. If he performed the 9 demon ape transformation and reached the 6th transformation, his strength would instantly reach Level 9 Marquee Immortal Realm. And now, as Yi Xian's original body broke through again, reaching Level 3 Marquee Immortal Realm, which was the peak of the initial stage. Once he activated the ancient demon ape bloodline in his body and entered the 6th transformation, he would reach Level 1 Marquee Immortal Realm. His pinnacle strength would reach Emperor Level 1, crossing a huge realm. He would finally be able to feel the majestic strength of an emperor. An immortal emperor, although it's only after activating the ancient demon ape bloodline in my body and performing the 6th transformation of the 9 demon ape bloodline. Clenching his fists tightly, Yi Xian's eyes burst out with an unprecedented blazing light. At this moment, the passion in his chest was like an avalanche as he raised his head and roared. But no matter what, this is after all the battle prowess that I, Yi, possess. The next moment, Yi Xian raised his head and roared, activating the ancient demon ape bloodline in his body. Roar! As his anger spread out, the power within Yi Xian's body instantly surged like a surging river. It surged mightily and instantly became boundless. His body was like a balloon that was being blown up as it quickly swelled up. An ancient demon ape with 3 heads and 6 arms appeared in the void. The aura of its 3 true forms was astonishing. Its body had reached a height of 10 feet. It had 3 heads and 6 arms, and the aura it exuded was terrifying. Roar! 9 demon ape transformation. First transformation. With another furious roar, the ancient ape demon's body instantly expanded. reaching a height of 1,000 feet from its previous height of 100 feet. Then, similar scenes appeared several times. Roar. 9 Demon Ape Transformation. 4th Transformation. A 5th roar rang out as the ancient ape demon's ferocious 3-headed, 6-armed form expanded to a height of 1 million feet after entering its 4th transformation. Roar. 9 Demon Ape Transformation. 5th Transformation. Another roar came out, and the ancient ape demon's body grew 10 times bigger, reaching 1 million feet tall before it stopped. At this time, its aura had reached the peak of the 9th level of the Marquis Immortal Realm. However, this was still not the end. Yi Xian couldn't wait to feel the majestic strength of an immortal emperor. The 6th transformation of the ancient demon ape was imperative. Roar. 9 Demon Ape Transformation. 6th Transformation. With that final roar, the primordial ape demon, which had already reached a size of 1 million feet, instantly swelled to 10 times its original size, reaching a terrifying height of 10 million feet. This size was definitely comparable to a small planet. The aura emitted from its body suddenly broke through the barrier of a large realm, reaching the pinnacle of the current realm, level 1 of an immortal emperor. Is this the power of an immortal emperor? Feeling the indescribable majestic strength in his body, Yi Xian lowered his head, his eyes gleaming as he looked at his huge body, which wasn't much smaller than the planet under his feet. He muttered, "Now I feel like I can destroy a small space with one punch. It's not a simple space shattering, but a complete annihilation." Chapter 42-25. After confirming that there was no so-called big shot secretly guarding this life star ahead, the 3-clawed flood dragon immediately sent out a second divine thought voice transmission in shame and annoyance. This time, he only gave the other party 3 minutes. Within 3 minutes, if the core higher-ups of the major forces in this life star did not rush out of the atmosphere of the star and come to the void in front of him to kneel down, then, considering the voting result of the more than 30 immortal old monsters of the allied forces of the 9 races, although he could not really kill all the survivors of the primordial era on this life star. However, he could not let go of the dozens of perfect universe rank 9 core higher-ups of the major forces that he had locked onto. As a dignified immortal old monster, he had already sent out 2 consecutive messages. The second time, he even asked the dozens of half-step immortal old monsters in this life star in front of him to kneel down and surrender, but they actually dared to ignore it. If he did not kill them, how could he make a warning to others? The 3 minutes passed in a flash. The final result made the 3-clawed flood dragon almost go berserk on the spot. Even the nearly 70 immortal old monsters of the 3 camps who were closely monitoring the situation inside the life star in front of them, as well as the more numerous universe old monsters, sector lord old monsters, domain lord old monsters, and so on. At this time, the expressions on their faces, all of them also revealed strong displeasure and indignation. The indigenous survivors of this life star in front of them were really too unruly, or perhaps it would be more appropriate to say that they did not know the difference between life and death. In the 3 minutes after the 3-clawed flood dragon sent out his second message, the tens of millions of indigenous survivors in the atmosphere of the entire life star clearly heard this warning, but they still did not take it seriously at all. They still did what they were supposed to do. Occasionally, some people would raise their heads to look at the atmosphere above their heads, but their faces were full of ridicule. Roar! Damn it! Are all the indigenous survivors of this life star really idiots? This is so infuriating. In the face of such an embarrassing scene, it was impossible for the 3-clawed flood dragon to maintain his dignity even if he wanted to. He immediately roared, his tone full of exasperation. A powerful immortal realm old monster was infuriated to the point of spitting out blood because of a bunch of brainless aboriginal survivors. He was too unlucky. He originally thought that this battle would be a show of face, but he didn't expect that before the battle even started, he had already lost all his face. At this moment, even his intestines were about to turn green with regret. Against such a group of idiots, not just him, even an official level Undying wouldn't be able to do anything. He would still be angered to death. What an unlucky year for him to encounter such an unlucky thing. As these thoughts flashed through its mind, the anger in the 3-clawed dragon's heart became more and more intense. Before it finished roaring, Its figure had already charged forward from the flagship fortress of the Blood Dragon clan under its feet. It turned into a ray of light and charged forward with monstrous anger. The birth stars of life that were millions of miles away shot out. He decided that there was no need to say anything after entering the atmosphere of this star. He didn't want to be angered by this group of idiots and become a joke to the numerous experts behind him. After entering, he would directly make a move and kill all the nearly 100 old monsters in this life star in one fell swoop. This way, he should be able to achieve the effect he wanted. Although this group of Aboriginal survivors had brain problems and couldn't understand human language, they should still be able to understand the bloody facts in front of them. To deal with these stubborn and stupid Aboriginals, he had to use the most direct and most brutal method. Whoosh! A distance of millions of miles was not too far for the three-clawed flood dragon, who was at the 6th level of the immortal realm. In a few breaths, his figure had already turned into a ray of light and shot out. In the blink of an eye, he was outside the atmosphere of this life star in front of him. With just one step, he could step into the interior of the life star and kill wantonly. At this moment, the group of high-level survivors on Sangji Star, who were originally calm and confident without the slightest bit of worry, all subconsciously had their hearts in their throats. As universe-grade powerhouses, their spirit senses had long penetrated the atmosphere and had been closely watching the situation outside Sangji Star. Although everyone was certain that their master could return at any time, the invading fleet had already sent out 2 warnings through divine sense transmissions. Now, an undying old monster had already rushed out of the battleship out of shame and anger, rushing to attack the atmosphere of Mulberry G Star. In the next moment, the other party only needed to take a step to pass through the atmosphere of this planet and enter the interior of the planet. At that time, a bloody massacre would definitely happen immediately. This immortal realm old monster was obviously very angry. Now that he had come in anger, if he didn't kill, would he be able to chat? As these thoughts flashed through their minds, the high-level members of the various tribes on Sangji Star, who were using their spirit senses to observe the situation outside the atmosphere, suddenly became worried. Although this immortal realm old monster would definitely be held accountable by the master and wouldn't have a good end before the master returned. If this person really stepped into Sangji Star, rivers of blood would flow and their clansmen would be killed. This was obviously unavoidable. At this moment, dozens of core high-level half-step immortal realm experts of the various tribes on Sangji Star had cold eyes. Without any agreement, all of them subconsciously wanted to rush out of the atmosphere and stop the other party outside. Although a bloody battle would definitely break out if they did so, they had no other choice for the survival of their clansmen. Furthermore, if they chose to be cowards, once the master returned, they wouldn't be able to escape punishment for this matter either. Roar. Almost at the same time, just as these dozens of Universe 9th grade half-step immortal realm experts were about to rush out of the atmosphere, an earth-shattering roar suddenly came from the end of the void far to the right of Sangji Star without warning. It was just a roar, and perhaps it was still tens of millions of miles away in the void. However, at this moment, the entire boundless starry sky clearly trembled slightly. The mulberry star beneath his feet seemed to have been blown away by an invisible galactic hurricane. The entire planet shook a few times in the void. The 3-clawed serpent dragon, who was striding into Sangji Star's atmosphere, trembled violently at this moment. After trembling violently, it subconsciously followed the sound to the end of the void far to the right and looked into the distance. It even exclaimed in surprise, as though it was a conditioned reflex. This aura, regal immortal realm? Heavens! Chapter 42-26. The boundless bestowment imparted power in his body made Yi Xian extremely excited. It wasn't until he raised his head and let out a wild roar that the surging emotions in his chest were mostly vented and his mind calmed down. Yi Xian subconsciously spread out the terrifying divine sense of the titled King Realm and quickly swept through the void of the universe within 100 million kilometers. In an instant, he found out everything that was happening around Mulberry Star, which was tens of millions of kilometers away. Are they finally here? The leading army is actually the allied army of the 9 great races of the second universe. This is exactly what I want. With a flash of light in his eyes, Yi Xian disappeared with a thought. Today, not only had he activated the ancient demon ape bloodline in his body, but he had also used the 6th transformation of the Demon Ape 9 transformation bloodline ability. Within the giant true body of 10 million feet, the terrifying power of the Emperor Immortal Level 1 surged. Tens of millions of miles, with just a flash, he had already flashed. Of course, considering that it was not a good time to reveal his true identity, when Yi Xian stepped forward, he had already retracted the skeleton body and the black fog body in the 3-headed 6-armed demon ape true body, leaving only the flesh body. He also made some small changes to reveal his appearance. It was like a star berserk ape. In the next moment, his figure crossed tens of millions of miles of space and appeared in an empty space only a few million miles away from Sangji Star. Although it came silently without any warning at this moment, whether it was the 12 tribes on Sangji Star, the tens of millions of remnant experts of all sizes, or the countless stars in the hundreds of millions of battleships of the 3 camps outside the planet's atmosphere, they were all stepping into the atmosphere of Sangji Star. The 3-clawed flood dragon that wanted to enter the planet's atmosphere and start a massacre, in the void within a radius of 10 million miles. All the breathing life forms subconsciously cast their gazes at Yi Xian because of an inexplicable fear in their hearts. His body was tens of millions of feet tall, his eyes gleaming coldly. Although the aura within his body was restrained, it still gave people a feeling that he could destroy the world. At this moment, Yi Xian's invincible aura of the star berserk ape was incomparably clear and almost eternally engraved in everyone's hearts. The 3-clawed flood dragon's reaction was the fastest. As his body trembled violently, he subconsciously exclaimed on the spot, "This aura, an emperor-level undying? My God. Big brother, don't be impulsive. This is a misunderstanding." Almost in the next instant, in the universe void a million kilometers away from Mulberry G Star, within the hundreds of millions of starships of the 3 camps that had only arrived less than 2 hours ago, cries of despair rang out from all over the place. Emperor level? It's actually an emperor level undying. It's over this time. No wonder these indigenous survivors are laughing so strangely. They are completely fearless. To think we treated them like idiots. The ones with brains are clearly us okay. A group of normal undyings with over 100 million battleships actually dared to attack an Emperor-level undying's life star. Let's flee, there's no suspense. Not only is he an Emperor-level undying, but he's also a star berserk ape. This kind of bloodline has the most violent temperament. It's completely unreasonable. If we don't flee now, we will definitely die here today. What the hell? Any random warrior that jumped out is an Emperor-level undying. How are we supposed to live? Let's flee. Rumble. Rumble. Along with these exclamations, the countless battleships of the 3 camps instantly unleashed their full power. Without hesitation, they turned around and rushed toward the dim light curtain behind them. These hundreds of millions of battleships of various types had only arrived in this strange starry sky for less than 2 hours. Except for the 3-clawed flood dragon, everyone else had not even had the time to step out of the battleship under their feet and experience the atmosphere of this starry sky. At this time, it was as if they had lost their home. Like dogs, they hurriedly turned around and tried to flee. Today, none of you should even think about escaping. Facing all of this, Yi Xian's eyes were incomparably cold. Before he could finish speaking, his enormous and terrifying body of a violent ape had already disappeared from the spot. In the next instant, when his figure appeared once more, he was shockingly over 50,000 kilometers away. He crossed his arms and stood boldly in front of the dim light barrier that led to the gloomy world, and he obstructed the path of escape of everyone. Seeing this scene, countless battleships that were fleeing from all directions suddenly stopped in midair. There was an Emperor-level undying blocking their way. Even though his huge body was nothing compared to the dim light screen, there was still more space on both sides of his body. The gap was enough for an entire fleet to pass through. However, none of the battleships dared to charge forward. That would be no different from sending themselves to their deaths. After a short period of silence, within the fleets of the 3 camps, a few of the undyings began to roar madly. With the path ahead blocked, They couldn't leave this damned foreign space. If they stayed behind and faced an emperor-level undying, the only thing waiting for them was death. There was no other possibility. Since they were already dead, there was no chance of survival if they stayed behind. Charging into the dim light screen would give them a chance to escape and return alive. For this chance, all the Undyings gave it their all. Attack! All ships immediately attack. No matter what, we have to blast this space ape away. Otherwise, if we stay here, we will definitely die, my god. If I knew there was an emperor-level Undying here, I wouldn't have come even if you beat me to death. Rumble. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Following the roars of the undying old freaks, the fleet commanders below did not hesitate and immediately gave the order to activate the cannons and launch an attack. In an instant, countless different-sized energy beams shot out from all directions. It was as though they were free, covering the skies and land as they shot towards the huge space ape. Seeing this, Yi Xian was enraged. With his current cultivation base and the boundless blood and chi of his gigantic true form, the energy beams of ordinary battleship cannons could no longer harm him, unless they were the energy beams of the antimatter death ray cannons of the fortresses. However, among the more than 100 million battleships of the three great factions, although there were quite a few strongholds of varying sizes, they were only around 20%. Moreover, they were scattered throughout the vast void in front of them. With Yi Xian's strength, there was no question at all about avoiding these scattered antimatter death beam cannons. Problem. In a flash, he had already flashed out. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of a fleet, raising his fist and punching. Pong! Chapter 42-27. As the battleship exploded, the other weaker existences, even universe-grade powerhouses, were unable to escape. Their bodies were either torn apart by the explosion of the battleship or blasted into a bloody mist by the terrifying impact of Yi Xian's punch. More than 100 battleships of various types exploded, leaving only 3 survivors. These 3 fellows were all immortal old monsters from the Green Rock race, one of the 9 great races of the Second Universe. These 100 battleships all belonged to the Green Rock race of the 9-race alliance in the Second Universe. One of the large fortresses was the central flagship of the Green Rock Army. Yi Xian had deliberately targeted this side and attacked. The hundreds of millions of battleships around him had all fired at the command of the immortal old monsters of various races. If he wanted to stop all this, he had to start with the immortal old monsters. However, even he had not expected that the central flagship fortress he had targeted would actually belong to the Green Rock race of the Second Universe. Speaking of which, this race did not have a good relationship with Yi Xian back then. In fact, among the top 10 races of the Second Universe, besides the Dark Turtle race which had already been sealed, the other 9 races were all like this. They were all Yi Xian's enemies. Although Yi Xian had later become the Star Master of the Sky River Star, their relationship had eased on the surface. However, judging from the fact that the races of the Second Universe had sealed off the wormhole and prevented the powerhouses of other races and powers from entering the Second Universe, it was obvious that this group of fellows was still the same as before. Everyone was just at peace on the surface. In private, they still had their own schemes. As such, Yi Xian naturally had nothing to be afraid of. He did not feel any psychological pressure at all. At this moment, the 3 immortal old monsters of the Green Rock race had just fallen out of the central flagship fortress that had exploded into a fireball. Their expressions changed drastically as they begged Yi Xian for mercy. Big boss. Don't be impulsive. Yes, let's talk nicely. Impulsiveness is the devil. Misunderstanding. This is definitely a F***king misunderstanding. As they begged for mercy, the 3 fellows retreated quickly. Whether it was their words or their actions, they were all trying to fool Yi Xian. You 3 old fellows, do you think I am as stupid as you? Yi Xian was furious. He could not be bothered to talk nonsense with these 3 fellows. The reason he had attacked was to make an example out of them. If these 3 old fellows had been honest, it would have been fine. However, now that they wanted to fool him, there was no need to be polite. Boom! Bang! 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 As the violent Star Ape punched out, the 3 Green Rock race's undying old monsters who were retreating quickly exploded into 3 clouds of blood mist. They were killed in the blink of an eye. If you dare to attack me or escape to escape, this will be your fate. Yi Xian's Yeziz's the immortal old ancestor of the immortal old monster, to his to immortal to kill. At the same time, the three immortal old monsters of the green rock race were sucked into his body and sent into the farmer god cauldron in his undying world. He did not want to reveal his identity as Yi Xian. Therefore, not only could he not reveal his ancient ape demon form, he could not even summon the farmer god cauldron. Fortunately, he could absorb the blood mist into his body and send it into the farmer god cauldron to condense the blood essence. The result was the same, so there was nothing wrong with it. As he finished speaking, the three immortal old monsters were condensed into three immortal old blood essences in the farmer god cauldron in his undying world. Yi Xian kept them in the cave at the bottom of the volcano in the central region. He would use them to refine the level 22 pill in the future, or when he was in seclusion to break through. At this moment, as Yi Xian's thunderous attack destroyed more than 100 different types of battleships, followed by another punch that killed the three powerful immortal old monsters, the surrounding battleships that were firing in unison suddenly stopped as if they had agreed to it. Following that, faint sounds of breaking through the air could be heard. One figure after another rushed out from the central flagship strongholds of the various battleships. They hesitated and hesitated as they slowly flew towards Yi Xian. At a glance, there were a total of 62 such figures, and they were all immortal old monsters. These fellows clearly understood the situation. They knew that it was impossible to create chaos and escape from such a powerful immortal emperor. Although they had a lot of people, a total of 62 immortal emperors, the other party had killed 3 of them with just one punch. Even if they killed all of them, it would only take a few more punches. If that was the case, they might as well give in temporarily and think of a way to escape in the future. After all, since this galactic berserk ape only asked for all the battleships to cease fire and not allow anyone to escape and did not directly charge into the fleet and attack without restraint, it meant that its purpose was very likely not to kill everyone. If that was the case, there was room for negotiation. Why are you not running anymore? Seeing that the 62 immortal realm old monsters had all arrived in front of them one after another, they were divided into several groups and gathered in the air in front of them, maintaining a safe distance. All of their faces were filled with vigilance. Yi Xian immediately laughed sinisterly. Towards this, the group of immortal emperors were all bitter. Some sighed, some were speechless. Although no one said anything, they all shook their heads. Obviously, this was a sign that they had accepted their fate. At least on the surface, they had surrendered and did not dare to talk about escaping. Yi Xian was quite satisfied with this kind of performance. He immediately nodded his head, raised his hand, and pointed around. Since you're not escaping, then from now on, all of you, including all of the warships behind you, as well as all of the lives within the warships, all of you have been captured by this king. Captives? The group of immortal old monsters stared at each other, their faces showing strange expressions. They naturally understood the meaning behind Yi Xian's words. But, a powerful emperor-level undying, why would he capture them? Even though there were quite a number of immortal emperors, over 60 of them, there was not a single immortal emperor. They could not even take a few punches from him. And even though the space battleships behind them were more in number, over 100 million, compared to an immortal emperor, they were obviously not enough. At this moment, the 62 immortal emperors were all stunned. They couldn't understand what Yi Xian's goal was. From now on, all the battleships will be reorganized into 10 small legions. When these 10 legions are combined, they will be this king's captive legion. Chapter 42:28. Plop! Plop! The moment Yi Xian finished his words, the 62 undying old monsters in front of him were almost flipped over in the void space. At this moment, they basically understood why Yi Xian had captured this huge fleet. If there were no accidents, he probably wanted to build them into an army and conquer the territory. After all, even though the enemy was powerful and was an emperor with terrifying cultivation base, he couldn't possibly go into battle alone for such a great expedition in the star field, right? It just so happened that the indigenous survivors on the life star he was protecting were all very weak. Hence, he naturally had his eyes on this powerful fleet behind them. Including the 62 undying old monsters, He also had his eyes on them and wanted to use them as generals to lead the army. This originally wasn't a big deal. Being the vanguard of an emperor wasn't shameful at all. In the starry sky, the strong were always respected. Besides, according to the enemy's words, it seemed that after the army was formed and reorganized into 10 small armies, they would form a council to manage it, and the enemy wouldn't interfere. This gave them a very high degree of freedom. Even if they weren't happy living under the enemy's banner in the future, it was still possible for them to find an opportunity to escape from this star field. However, putting aside the fact that this army was called the Captive Army, the Supreme Council that led the army was also called the Captive Army. Wasn't this a little too much? An organization like the Council sounded high-end, but if they added the word Captive Army in front of them, how could this group of undying old monsters still have the face to go out and meet others? Since none of you have any objections, then this matter is settled. Just as these old guys were feeling miserable and were hesitating whether they should discuss with this being in front of them who didn't care about names and see if they could change the name of the council, Yi Xian took it as their silent agreement. He waved his hand and turned his gaze to the three-clawed flood dragon. You look quite pleasing to the eye. From now on, you'll be the chairman of the Captive Army Council. Plop! This time, the three-clawed flood dragon was really thunderstruck and directly fell into the void. It was not easy for him to get up, and his face was already incomparably miserable. At this moment, he really wanted to puff out his chest and tell the other party that he was not a thing. No, it did not matter whether he was a thing or not. In short, this captive was a matter of discussion. No matter what, he didn't want to take up the position of patriarch. What happened today would definitely spread after they returned to the second universe in the future. At that time, the so-called Captive Army and Captive Council would definitely become the laughingstock of countless powerhouses in the 3 main planes of the starry skies. The number of members in the army did not matter at all. There were more than 100 million battleships, and there were even more experts from various races. Who knew which one of them was? Even if the other 61 members of the parliament were captured, there were still quite a number of them. When the news spread, it was impossible to name them one by one. Only he, the chairman, could not escape no matter what. At the thought that when people mentioned this shameful matter in the future, they would definitely mention the chairman of the Captive Council. The three-clawed flood dragon immediately felt as though there was nothing left to live for. He was so anxious that he almost cried. When they saw this scene, the other 61 immortal old monsters exchanged glances and expressed sympathy for the three-clawed flood dragon. At the same time, they all secretly heaved a sigh of relief. In any case, they should be thankful that the chairman of the Captive Council had not fallen on their heads. Master! Welcome back, Master. At the same time, more than 30 figures came together from the direction of the distant Sangji star. Although they were still quite a distance away, they all greeted Yi Xian excitedly. These 30 figures were the upper echelons of the 12 major tribes on the Sangji star. They had just been summoned out of seclusion by the remnant powerhouses of the tribes 2 hours ago. Although none of them had broken through to the immortal realm, all of them were already at the peak of the universe grade 9, which was half-step immortal realm. Huh? All of you broke through from the initial universe grade to the peak of the universe grade 9 in 1 year. Not bad. Not bad. Yi Xian turned his head to look, and his eyes immediately lit up. After a few words of praise, he suddenly waved his hand, and in an instant streaks of dark light shot towards this group of fellows. There were exactly 36 streaks, and each of the 12 tribes' upper echelons had one. These 36 streaks of dark light were taken out by Yi Xian from his undying world. He had refined a total of 100 vials of level 20 liquid a few months ago. At this moment, 1/3 of them had been consumed. The level 20 liquid could allow a universe grade 9 to break through to the first level of the immortal realm. Now, Yi Xian had given each of the 36 half-step immortal old monsters a vial of level 20 liquid. Obviously, he wanted to help them break through and become immortal old monsters. As a result, there were now 36 immortal old monsters among the remnant people of the Sangji star. Their strength was finally passable. Of course, the gene cultivation liquid was a technological product of the 3 major galaxies. Yi Xian did not want to reveal his identity yet, so he naturally could not take it out in its original form. These 36 vials of gene cultivation liquid had all been compressed into the shape of a pill. They were only the size of a longan fruit and had a strong aura. There was no change in their medicinal efficacy, but they definitely did not look like gene cultivation liquid anymore. At this moment, the 36 half-step immortal old monster upper echelons were all delighted when they saw the streaks of dark light shooting toward them. After receiving them, they cupped their hands toward Yi Xian to express their gratitude for the reward bestowed by their master. Swallow this elixir immediately when you return and go into seclusion. If nothing goes wrong, you should be able to break through to the immortal realm in a few days. Yi Xian waved his hand lightly as if he had just completed a trivial task. Go. Remember to consolidate your cultivation base after you break through. You still have to cultivate diligently in the future. You won't be at a disadvantage if you follow me. When your cultivation base reaches the peak of the Immortal Realm Grade 9, I will wait for you to reach the peak of the Immortal Realm Grade 9. When that time is up, I will naturally give you even better elixirs, enough to help you break through to the Marquee Immortal Realm in one fell swoop. All this had left the 62 immortal old monsters, including the 3-clawed flood dragon, dumbfounded. It was only now that they realized that the 36 half-step immortal old monsters on this life star had only just broken through to the universe grade a year ago. In just 1 year, he had actually broken through from the initial stage to the universe 9 grade martialist realm. This was already shocking enough, but compared to the so-called elixir each of them had just received, it was nothing. Alright, they could ignore the elixir for breaking through to the immortal realm, but the elixir for breaking through to the Marquee Immortal Realm was definitely not something they could ignore. This master actually had such a good thing on him. Chapter 42-29. As soon as the 3-clawed flood dragon finished speaking, the other 61 undying old monsters around him all looked at him with disdain. When he was made the chairman of the council, he looked like he had nothing to live for. Everyone even looked at him sympathetically to comfort him. However, in the blink of an eye, when he heard that there was a treasure pill that could help a level 9 undying master break through to the level of an official, he immediately changed his expression and shamelessly asked for a reward in the name of chairman. He even deliberately mentioned his own cultivation level at the end of his sentence. In terms of strength, he was only 2 levels away from breaking through to the level of an official. Wasn't this obviously hinting that he would give him a treasure pill? It was simply too shameless. But then again, if there was such an opportunity to be shameless and really get a treasure pill that could help them break through to the level of an official, no one present would mind being shameless for once. Thinking like this, when the group of Immortal Realm old monsters looked at Yi Xian again, their gazes instantly changed. All of their eyes were about to emit a green light. They were like wolves, causing people to feel embarrassed just by looking at them. Reward? Are you asking for this? In order to whet the appetite of these Immortal Realm old monsters, they would willingly and even deliberately work for him in the future. Yi Xian held back his laughter and flipped his hand with a nonchalant expression. He took out the other level 21 pill from the undying world within his body and held it in his palm. At this moment, the gazes of the 62 undying old monsters gathered on his palm. Their eyes glowed brightly, and their breathing quickened. With their cultivation, they could naturally sense what kind of aura this level 21 pill contained. This was definitely a treasure pill comparable to a level 21 liquid. It could help a level 9 undying master break through to the level of an official without any suspense. Just this one pill was enough to make the 62 Immortal Realm old monsters go crazy. Although their strength varied, with the stronger ones reaching the level 8 undying master and the weaker ones only reaching the level 2 undying master, even if they couldn't use it now, if they could get such a treasure pill in the future, when their strength reached the level 9 undying master, once they consumed it, they would be able to break through to the next level in just a few days. Within this short period of time, he could easily break through and become an official level undying. Such an opportunity was definitely the dream of any undying old monster. After all, under normal circumstances, an undying level 9 undying would need at least 1,000 years of closed-door cultivation to break through to the official level. And there was no guarantee of success. Basically, out of 1,000 undying level 9 peak undyings, only a few could successfully become official level undyings. As for the others, they would either be stuck at the sempiternal realm or perish. Yes, 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 that's it. Thank you, my king, for your reward. The three-clawed serpent nearly drooled at the sight of the pill. To him, the allure of this pill was countless times greater than the drop of All-Fiend Origin Elixir that Yi Xian had given him. After all, the All-Fiend Origin Elixir couldn't help him break through to the official level from the sempiternal level 9 peak Undying level. Seeing Yi Xian take out the pill, this guy thought that he was really going to be rewarded. He was overjoyed. He thanked Yi Xian before he even got the pill. Moreover, he even addressed Yi Xian respectfully as his king and thanked him for his reward. In an instant, the other 61 undying old monsters rolled their eyes again. They all looked at the three-clawed serpent with disdain, but there was clearly a strong sense of envy in their eyes. If possible, they would rather switch places with him. Unfortunately, everyone was wrong. Yi Xian took a deep breath as he spoke. Without waiting for the three-clawed serpent to charge forward, he flipped his giant palm and put away the pill on the spot. "Who said that this king is going to bestow this treasure pill to you?" he asked in a tone that was neither salty nor mild. The three-clawed serpent, who was about to charge forward, was instantly petrified. He blinked and stared at Yi Xian, feeling as though he had suddenly fallen from the clouds to the bottom of the valley, rapidly spreading in his heart. Fortunately, Yi Xian didn't attack him again. Instead, he said in a gentle tone, "On one hand, your cultivation hasn't reached the sempiternal level 9 peak. Besides, being the chairman of the captive council is already a reward. Don't be too greedy. On the other hand, you've just been recruited by me and haven't made any contributions. Even if your cultivation has reached the sempiternal level 9 peak, what right do you have to apply for a pill of this level as a reward from me?" With that, Yi Xian brought the topic back to business. At this point, he saw that all the undying old monsters nearby were deep in thought. They were obviously waiting for him to continue. After a short pause, he continued, "Soon, I'll lead all my subordinates to the deeper part of the starry sky and conquer many powerful forbidden areas in the starry sky. Basically, there's more than one marquee in those forbidden areas in the starry sky. I'll take care of them. What you're responsible for is only the ferocious beasts in the forbidden areas of the immortal level and the fleet under your command to kill the ferocious beasts in the forbidden areas below the immortal level. As for the spoils of war, I and my subordinates will only take 70% of it. The other 30% will be divided by the captive army according to your military exploits. Let me remind you that the pills in my hand and the great flesh medicine that can help all the survivors of Mulberry G-Star improve their cultivation rapidly are all made from the remains of the ferocious beasts and various spiritual herbs and spiritual medicines obtained from the various life stars in the starry sky. If you want to get the pills and the great flesh and blood that can improve your cultivation rapidly, you can accumulate military exploits. If you need them, you can apply to me. There's another way, and that is to save up the 30% of the spoils. When you've reached the required amount, you can ask this king to help you refine the precious pills and flesh medicines." Hearing this, the eyes of the immortal realm old monsters immediately lit up, and even their breathing became rapid again. After all, they came to this starry sky to plunder resources. Although they were now captives, what they were going to do next was obviously not in conflict with their original intention. Although they were only left with 30% of the spoils of war, following an undying emperor on an expedition, the total amount of spoils of war each time was far more than what they could get by going on expeditions alone. Therefore, 30% was actually not a loss at all. Chapter 4230. Originally, the 62 immortal old monsters, including the three-clawed flood dragon, had only submitted to Yi Xian's despotic power on the surface. In their hearts, they had already planned to oppose him in public. As long as they found an opportunity, they would immediately flee with their race's spaceship into the dim light screen from which they had come and escape. However, now that Yi Xian had displayed his methods, the mentality of these 62 immortal old monsters had completely changed in an instant. Whether it was the so-called flesh medicine that could allow a newly minted universe grade to break through to the universe grade 9 perfection within a year, or the treasure pill that could allow an immortal old monster to smoothly break through to the universe grade 9 perfection in a short time and become an immortal marquee in one fell swoop. These were all things that could be obtained by them. They were supreme resources that could only be found by chance. and these things couldn't be found anywhere else. In the current era, within the various races and pinnacle powers of the three Space Masters, there were Emperor-level Undyings. Some of the stronger races even had Emperor-level and Emperor-level Undyings. However, they also did not have such treasure pills. Furthermore, hadn't this guy who called himself Emperor already said so? The raw materials used to concoct these medicines and pills were the remains of the beasts in the Forbidden Area, and all kinds of top-grade precious materials and medicines that grew in the void of the universe, as well as the living stars in the starry void. They could obtain these resources here, and this was the place with the most resources. Among the three main star planes of the current era, where else could this ancient void be so rich in resources? After summarizing all of this, the 62 Immortal Realm Old Monsters instantly calmed down. They decided to follow behind Yi Xian to conquer the restrictions in the depths of the void. Moreover, they did their best, not dawdling and muddling through, because in every battle 30% of the final spoils would be distributed to them, and this 30% was clearly the future medicine of flesh and blood, as well as a treasure pill, to them and the experts of the clans under their command. After thinking about all this clearly, it could be said that even if Yi Xian wanted to drive these guys away now, they would not do it. They would shamelessly follow behind Yi Xian, seeking to be ruled over and captured. Everything was settled, and Yi Xian was very satisfied with the result. But now, since everyone was on the same side, it was impossible for a great battle to break out again. Yi Xian immediately removed the sixth transformation of the Devil Ape, but he still maintained the state of activating the Devil Ape's true body within his body. However, he concealed the two true bodies of the skeleton and the black fog, leaving behind only his flesh and blood true body. They had all transformed into starry sky violent apes. As a result, his cultivation base dropped from level 1 Emperor to level 4 Marquis Immortal after activating the Demon Ape true form. Although his cultivation base dropped by 6 small ranks, and he even crossed a big realm, his current level of cultivation base was still high enough for him to withstand the pressure of the Demon Ape true form. The 62 Immortal Realm Old Monsters were pressuring him, so Yi Xian was not worried at all. Besides, in the eyes of these old guys, their king had only shrunk his body size and maintained it at a height of 30 meters because it was too inconvenient for him to move his body. Even his cultivation base was probably because the pressure of an emperor was too strong. Even if he kept it hidden, only a trace of it would be scary enough. That was why he deliberately hid his cultivation base and maintained it at level 4 Marquis Immortal. As a result, he was not worried that these old guys would have any bad intentions. After everything was settled, the 62 Immortal Realm Old Monsters quickly got busy. Yi Xian had already told them that the 100 million plus battleships of the three camps had to be reorganized into 10 small armies. Besides, the captive army had to be led by the captive army, which was the captive council, and they had to immediately set up some rules and regulations. All of this needed to be done by them personally. However, the group of old fellows were extremely busy because the king had said that the first expedition war would begin soon. In other words, the 30% of the spoils of the first battle that belonged to them would be in their hands very soon. Yi Xian nodded his head in satisfaction when he saw these old fellows busying themselves in the void, dispatching fleets, rearranging them into 10 small legions, and discussing the details of the establishment and operation of the captive council. He didn't disturb them and immediately returned with a flash of his body. Sang-Ji Star. Previously, after receiving a level 20 pill from him, the 36 half-step Immortal Realm seniors of the 12 tribes of Sang-Ji Star went into seclusion again as soon as they returned to the star. They were in the midst of breaking through a realm. Yi Xian had returned to Sang-Ji Star to wait for them to break through successfully. Once these 36 old fellows all broke through to the Immortal Realm, Yi Xian would give them another 3 days to stabilize their cultivation. After that, when everyone came out of seclusion, a new round of the Forbidden Areas expedition would begin once again. Yi Xian did not plan to let the 20,000 demon scouts led by Guihai Yidao and Song Qingyu participate in this war. He did not want the captives to notice anything fishy. This included the 8 great Vajras in the Farmer God Cauldron, Flying Centipede, and Old Monster Inji. However, this was also a good thing. He could allow his direct subordinates to enter seclusion in the Shenong Cauldron and the Long Yi Cauldron. He believed that when Yi Xian saw them again, the cultivation of his direct subordinates would definitely rise to a higher level. As for the expedition war target, there was no need to choose. Yi Xian decided to go to the place he had visited not long ago. Last time, his cultivation hadn't reached the Immortal Emperor realm yet. Facing 3 marquee Immortal Beasts commanders and more than 100 ordinary Immortal Beasts leaders, even Yi Xian could only quickly kill 5 Immortal Beasts leaders and immediately draw the whip. Then he fled. Moreover, it was during a critical moment that he used his interstellar jump ability to escape. It was somewhat embarrassing. However, it had only been a year, and the situation was completely different. His cultivation base had reached the Emperor level 1. He could absolutely crush the 3 marquee level beasts in the space restriction. Even the 36 Immortal Realm Seniors under him, including the 36 Immortal Realm Seniors who were about to break through, the 3-clawed Flood Dragon and the other 62 Immortal Realm Seniors, had reached a total of close to 100 Immortal Realm Seniors. Chapter 42-31. 5 days had passed in the blink of an eye. In just 5 days, the 36 senior members of the half-step Immortal Realm from the 12 tribes of the Mulberry G-Star had all successfully made breakthroughs in their cultivation. They had crossed the barrier of a big realm and successfully reached the Immortal Realm. Among the tens of millions of survivors of the remote antiquity today, there were finally Immortal Realm existences. Furthermore, there were 36 of them as soon as they appeared. Such a great change made the tens of millions of survivors and experts in the thousands of mountain villages of various sizes on the entire Mulberry Tree Star cheer for a whole day. In fact, it wasn't just the 36 high-level remnant experts. The thousands of remnant experts on Mulberry G-Star had all improved significantly compared to a year ago. For the remnant race that had been trapped in this void for a long time, this 1 year was like a complete transformation. Over the past year, under the 36 undying remnants, there were close to 100 more universe-grade powerhouses, 200 to 300 sector lords, 400 to 500 domain lords, and close to 1,000 star lords. If this had happened in the past, perhaps none of the tens of millions of remnant experts would have believed it. However, it had all become a reality now. Furthermore, the birth of the 36 Immortal Realm Old Monsters on Mulberry G-Star was equally shocking to the countless experts who had formed a captive council in the past 5 days. They had also organized all the battleships into 10 small army units. Even among the strongest tribes and top forces on the 3 main star planes, Immortal Realm Old Monsters didn't appear often. Usually, it would take many years for one more Immortal Realm clansman to break through to the Immortal Realm. However, in this place, in just a few days, 36 Immortal Realm Old Monsters had appeared at the same time on a small life star. This was definitely not an ordinary matter, especially when all the Starry Sky powerhouses in the captive army found out that these 36 Immortal Old Monsters had all successfully broken through from the Universe 9 grade to the Immortal Realm after consuming a treasure pill. Everyone's eyes lit up in an instant. It was even more intense than before. Perhaps their current cultivation base and strength were not enough, but as long as they accumulated enough battle merits and were allocated enough materials, they still hoped to exchange for a treasure pill with a heaven-defying effect comparable to the level 20 liquid from King Chao in the future. This hope was quietly buried in the bottom of everyone's heart. They gathered their strength and couldn't wait to rush to the battlefield in space. It was time for this battle to come. Whether it was the captive army or the tens of millions of survivors on Mulberry Tree, they were all ready. On the 6th day, Yi Xian rushed out of Mulberry Star and into the void beyond the atmosphere. Swish! With a wave of his hand, the giant life plug of the Wild Dragon battleship appeared. However, its appearance had undergone some changes. This was originally very simple. He just had to give the command to the core crystal of the world bug that formed this giant plug. And now, the Wild Dragon ship was about the size of a small planet. However, it looked more like a ship from the survivors. This was in line with the characteristics of this ancient space. For an emperor to have such a huge ship was a captive. The 62 Immortal Realm Old Monsters in the army didn't have any doubts. Soon, as the Cork of Life appeared, a large number of battleships of various sizes rushed out of Mulberry G's atmosphere and into the Cork of Life, which had long since been opened. At the same time, the captive army in space not far away was making their final preparations. All the small ships were passing through the doors of the various fortresses, entering within of the 100 million ships, 20% of them were 50,000 and 100,000 wide fortresses. The rest were large and small fortresses and 3,000 long star-level ships. In order to ensure the speed of interstellar travel, all the star states entered the large and small fortresses. Then, the smaller fortresses entered the smaller fortresses one by one. In the end, the 100 million-plus fleet was reduced to 2,000. More than 10,000 fortresses, big and small, were filled to the brim with fortresses and battleships. When all of this was completed, a day had already passed. Following Yi Xian's order, the Long Yi Life stronghold immediately transformed into a meteor beam that shot towards the direction of the starry sky that had already been locked onto. Behind, the 20 million fortresses were moving at full speed, their roars resounding throughout the entire space as they followed closely behind, from Mulberry Tree Star Field to that powerful forbidden space region. Yi Xian had used his physical body to travel for an entire 10 days. At that time, he was a level 1 official, far exceeding the 100,000 wide space fortress. This time, when the entire punitive army set off, the slowest was the small fortress with a diameter of 50,000 meters. No matter how fast the Long Yi battleship was, it still had to take into account the progress of the army behind it. Thus, the entire journey took a total of 17 days, and this was with the 20 million fortresses behind the Long Yi battleship. They did their best to use spatial jumps during the entire journey. The result. Otherwise, it would have taken even longer. After 17 days of boring space travel, the giant fortress of life and the 20 million fortresses behind it finally arrived at a space tens of millions of miles away from this powerful forbidden space. The entire army stopped in the air after Yi Xian gave the order. Immediately after, large and small fortresses drove out from the 20 million fortresses behind them. Then, even more stellar-level battleships drove out from the large and small fortresses. In less than a day, the entire captive army of more than 100 million battleships appeared once again. They were divided into 10 battle units and spread out in space. During this period of time, the million-plus battleships of the Desolate Era survivors in the Wild Dragon ship had also been set out, forming a huge combat unit. Show! The sound of something breaking through the air rang out as Yi Xian stored the giant life stopper into his undying world. Immediately after, he activated the 9 Devil Ape Transformations bloodline ability on the spot. He still hid his true form of the skeleton and the black mist, and only appeared in the form of the violent ape of the starry sky. However, his body instantly expanded to 10 million meters. His aura also rose to the strongest level 1 Emperor level, Shou. Shou, shou, shou. After that, nearly 100 air-piercing sounds rang out. 36 undying beings and 62 undying old monsters from the 3 main planes of the starry sky. A total of 98 undying beings rushed out of the battleships and followed behind the space-violent ape, which was millions of feet tall. Chapter 42-32. Roar! Screech! Following Yi Xian's order, the 98 immortal realm old monsters behind him raised their heads and roared at the same time. The cultivation aura within their bodies surged out with all their might, causing the entire void of the universe to tremble slightly. Behind them, the 10 great battle formations of the captive army, as well as the more than 1 million battleships controlled by the tens of millions of survivors of Mulberry Ji, followed closely behind them at full speed. They followed behind Yi Xian and the nearly 100 immortal realm old monsters behind him, carrying an indomitable aura of iron and blood as they headed towards the starry sky ahead. The forbidden land rumbled as they advanced. At this moment, Yi Xian was filled with lofty sentiments. Thinking back to when he first entered the starry sky environment from the 9 Heavens star, it seemed like just yesterday. At that time, he was still an insignificant first-stage star core cultivator. But now, in such a short time, he had grown to possess the battle strength of an emperor, followed by hundreds of millions of battleships and hundreds of immortal old monsters, leading an army to attack a powerful ancient forbidden land in the starry sky. All of this was like a dream. If someone had told him when he first entered the starry sky that everything that was happening right now would happen in such a short period of time, Yi Xian definitely wouldn't dare believe it. But all of this was the truth. It was the truth that was happening right now. Moreover, even this ancient and powerful forbidden area in front of him was far from the limit of his growth. It was only a springboard, a turning point. From here onwards, the stage in front of Yi Xian would be even wider. The height of his growth in the future, even if it was the current him. Even now, it was impossible to predict. Screech! With surging emotions, Yi Xian raised his head and let out an incomparably high-pitched screech, suppressing the roars of the 100 immortal old monsters behind him. His voice spread for hundreds of millions of miles. Without a doubt, in this ancient and powerful forbidden land in front of him, the strongest of the 100 planets with life. Hundreds of millions of ferocious beasts were alarmed at this moment. A great battle was about to break out. It did not take long for them to cross the distance of hundreds of millions of miles. In fact, the entire expedition army had only charged 2 to 3 million miles forward when a huge army of ferocious beasts appeared in front of them in front of the powerful forbidden land at the end of their line of sight. As soon as the roar sounded, the countless ferocious beasts in the forbidden area of the starry sky roared and rushed out of their respective planets. They were led by the sempiternal stage ferocious beasts as they quickly gathered in the void. At a glance, there were at least 30 to 40 million ferocious beasts gathered in the void. They covered the vast expanse of the void. However, this was far from the total number of ferocious beasts in this ancient forbidden land. It was only a small portion. Behind the army of ferocious beasts, there were still a large number of ferocious beasts in the forbidden land. They rushed out of the atmosphere of the planets and gathered towards the army of ferocious beasts. Mao! Roar! Screech! At this moment, 3 earth-shattering roars and screeches were heard. The most powerful beings in this ancient starry sky forbidden land, the 3 ferocious beast commanders, had finally arrived. They rushed out of their respective planets. From the giant planet on the left of the central region, a green bull rushed out. His body was 100,000 feet long, and his cultivation level was at the 7th level of Marquis Undying. He was the most powerful of the 3 Marquis Undying in this powerful starry sky forbidden land. On the right side, a space blood crocodile roared as it dashed out of the atmosphere of the giant planet. This body was also 100,000 zhang long. Its long tail was full of barbs that made people shudder. Its cultivation base was at level 4 of the Marquis Immortal Realm. The last Marquis Undying came from a giant planet behind the central region. He was a black beetle with an unknown bloodline. He was slightly small, only 100,000 feet long. However, his cultivation level wasn't weak either. He was at the 3rd level of Marquis Undying, which was the pinnacle of the initial level. At the same time, with the appearance of the 3 powerful Marquis Immortal Rank Ferocious Beast Commanders, the 120-plus Immortal Rank Ferocious Beast leaders gathered in front of the Ferocious Beast army roared in unison as if they had agreed beforehand. The void trembled once again. The 100 undying beasts behind Yi Xian did the same. Now, the other side responded in the same way. This was clearly a tit-for-tat, and they weren't afraid at all. Both sides were ready, and the battle could begin at any time. Soon, the 3 Marquis Undying Beasts arrived in front of the Ferocious Beast army, and Yi Xian's huge army also stopped. The distance between the two sides was only 5 to 6 million miles, which was already within the range of the battle. At this time, Yi Xian was still in his space-violent ape form. He was only 30 feet tall, and he didn't use his 9 transformation devil ape bloodline ability. Therefore, not only was his body size small, but his cultivation level was also only at the 4th level of Marquis Undying Beasts. The 3 Marquis Undying Beasts in front of the Ferocious Beast army recognized him, but they didn't take him seriously. Instead, they mocked him in a human voice. Their tone was full of disdain and sarcasm. "Look, it's that little violent ape cub. How dare he come back? He's quite capable. He can actually move 100 undying beasts and a strange army of 100 million. There's even a battleship army from the survivors. There's indeed a battleship army, and these battleships are indeed in the style of those survivors. However, what are those other things? Strange and strange, are they the new battleships of the survivors? It does seem to be the case. Unfortunately, if that's all, it's far from enough to shake us. Little violent ape, as a ferocious beast, you dare to collude with those survivors. You've completely disgraced us, desolate, ancient, ferocious beasts. You'll definitely die in today's battle. Roar! Before the other party could finish speaking, Yi Xian abruptly raised his head and roared. This time, due to the fact that there were still a large number of experts from the three main planes behind him, he didn't shout out the 9 transformations of the demonic ape. However, after this furious roar, his body rapidly expanded. And this time, Yi Xian didn't hesitate at all. He activated the 1st to the 6th transformation of the 9 transformation devil ape without any pause. This directly caused his body size to continue to increase rapidly, and the aura of his cultivation level was the same. Of course, it was only his space-violent ape form that had skyrocketed. His 2 true bodies, the skeleton and the black fog, had been hidden by him and weren't exposed. Chapter 42-33. From the Devil Ape's 1st transformation to the Devil Ape's 6th transformation, even if they were to activate it one by one, it would only take 6 breaths of time. Now that Yi Xian had activated it at the same time without any gaps, the time was even shorter. For breaths later, his body had grown from 100 feet to 10 million feet tall. His aura had risen from level 4 Marquis Immortal to level 1 Emperor Immortal. It was an increase of 6 small ranks, and he had crossed a whole realm. Roar! Finally, after completing all this, the space-violent ape, whose body was the size of a small planet and whose aura was so strong that it made the void tremble slightly, let out a roar. Hong! 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 As the furious roar echoed, more than 10 small abandoned planets hundreds of thousands of miles to the right of the figure directly exploded. It was a ferocious flame that reached the sky. Millions of miles away, the huge army of ferocious beasts that were roaring from time to time quietened down completely at this moment. More than 100 million ferocious beasts from the forbidden grounds all consciously retracted their auras. Some of the more cowardly ferocious beasts even clamped their tails between their legs. Obviously, they were scared out of their wits and were ready to be beasts with their tails between their legs. As for the level 7 green bull, the space blood crocodile, and the black beetle with unknown bloodline in front of the army of ferocious beasts, they were already dumbfounded. They stared blankly at Yi Xian, whose body had skyrocketed to the point that even they had to look up to. Their eyes were filled with confusion. In the blink of an eye, the little violent ape cub, who was only 10 zhang tall, had turned into a terrifying giant beast that was 10 million zhang tall. This was a joke. Even for them, they were only 100,000 zhang tall. Compared to him, they immediately became insignificant ants. Although they could also become 1 million zhang tall by fully activating their bloodline, they still couldn't compare to him. Besides, the huge size was only one aspect. The more important aspect was his strength. In the blink of an eye, a level 4 Marquis Immortal became an Emperor Immortal? How were they going to let him live? Gulp. What kind of bloodline ability is this? It's too monstrous. He's not a beast. After a short moment of silence, the 3 Marquis-level ferocious beast commanders finally spoke. The green bull swallowed a mouthful of saliva and didn't dare to speak. Although his strength was the strongest among the 3 commanders, his bloodline determined that his temperament wasn't violent. Usually, a bull was docile. Previously, because of his strength, he was arrogant and domineering. But now, facing an emperor, his bull nature returned. Even his tail began to shake subconsciously. This was his way of showing his good side. Instead, it was the star space blood crocodile and the black bug that were weaker than him. They were both violent beings and much braver than the green bull. At this moment, facing an emperor that far surpassed them, even though they were terrified, they weren't at the level of submitting to him. After all, it was a marquis, and it was a vicious beast with a vicious bloodline. Violent ape, do we have to fight? We don't have any grudges. Everything from before can be written off. In fact, we can even circumcise as compensation. After a short moment of shock, the 3 Marquis-level Undyings swiftly recognized the situation before them. Their arrogance from before was gone. When they spoke again, even their tones were much more serious. The last sentence was actually said by the Green Ox, who was the strongest among them and had reached the 7th level of the Immortal Marquis realm. It was truly shocking. It seemed that the docile nature of the Green Ox's bloodline had been completely awakened by Yi Xian's Emperor realm cultivation. Written off. Too late. Howl. Yi Xian had to start this battle. Otherwise, the nearly 100 immortal realm old monsters and the enormous army of over 100 million warships behind him wouldn't agree, especially the captive army that had just returned. The reason why they were willing to submit to Yi Xian was because of benefits, and these benefits were war benefits. If the battle didn't start, the army's morale would immediately crumble. Under such circumstances, it was hard to say if Yi Xian would still have the chance to lead the captive army to the next battle. Therefore, not to mention the fact that the other party still had some reservations in his words. Even if they completely put down their bodies and begged for mercy, Yi Xian wouldn't waver in the slightest. Furthermore, in order to make his opponent give up, he lifted his head and let out a furious roar. His figure flickered and he charged forward. His gigantic right arm, which was like a giant pillar that could hold up the heavens, suddenly punched out. Rumble. Yi Xian exerted his full strength with this punch. In an instant, a large amount of rumbling sounds exploded in front of him, causing a large portion of the space to collapse. An unparalleled terrifying force shot forward at a speed that caused one's hair to stand on end. Faced with this scene, all the ferocious beasts in the forbidden grounds millions of miles away were in an uproar. Their angry roars shook the sky. The three titled Marquis Realm Ferocious Beast commanders at the front of the Ferocious Beast army immediately launched a counterattack. Moo! The green ox was the first to react. As a deep ox moo rang out, two green crescent moon slashes, each about 3 kilometers long, shot out from his mouth. The void along the way was directly cut open. Endless turbulence rushed out from the cracks, causing the surrounding universe to become chaotic. Screech! A vicious howl rang out from the mouth of the black insect with an unknown bloodline. It retreated explosively in the blink of an eye, and a circle of ripples that seemed to have substance swept out. Its speed was even faster than the green ox's green half-moonlight slash. In the blink of an eye, it covered a circumference of millions of kilometers. Immediately, the 100 undying realm monsters behind Yi Xian felt their bodies become sluggish. They felt like they were stuck in an endless swamp. Yi Xian had a taste of this strange circle of ripples before. It had a special sealing effect on the universe void. Under its power, even Marquis Realm Undyings couldn't teleport, let alone normal Undyings. Rumble! At the same time, the level 4 Marquis Realm Blood Crocodile dashed to the right side of the void. Its huge crocodile tail, full of ferocious barbs, suddenly swung. Instantly, there was a thunderous roar in the void. A formless and terrifying shockwave attacked Yi Xian from behind. Chapter 42-34. Roar! You're courting death. Yi Xian was infuriated by the black beetle and the star blood crocodile's trick. The nearly 100 immortal realm old monsters behind him were generals that he had painstakingly nurtured or subdued. In the future, they would be the backbone of this desolate ancient fragment void. Yi Xian wasn't willing to easily deal with any of the immortal realm experts. Earth damage. But now, in the face of his attacks, the two beast commanders had actually avoided the tip of the spear and specifically targeted the generals behind him. They picked up soft persimmons and even tried to use this method to force Yi Xian to submit, so that they could take advantage of the opportunity when he turned around to save them to turn around and flee. This was absolutely intolerable. They were so vicious that he couldn't tolerate it. Yi Xian roared angrily. Two formless, majestic forces blasted out of his mouth and met the two half-moonlight slashes that were coming at him. Although the two half-moonlight slashes were only 3,000 feet long, they were completely disproportionate to Yi Xian's enormous body. Even if they hit his body, it would only leave a small wound. However, this green ox was at the 7th level of the Marquis Immortal Realm. In order to escape, it had used all of its power. Although the two half-moonlight slashes didn't look impressive, the energy it contained was terrifying. If there were no accidents, the slashes would definitely leave a deep wound on his body. It would be fine if he couldn't avoid them, but Yi Xian had the ability to disperse them. There was no need for him to stupidly take them head-on. With his current strength as an undying emperor, even if he only shot out two majestic forces in a hurry, It was enough to disperse a level 7 undying level 7 being's energy slash. At the same time, Yi Xian's fist that was originally heading towards the front quietly changed its direction. It no longer smashed towards the stage 7 Azure Ox, nor did it target the black arachnid. Although the latter's bloodline ability was strange, after the ripples spread out, it had already temporarily sealed the space behind Yi Xian within a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers. Even the hundreds of Immortal Realm old monsters seemed to be stuck in a swamp and could not get out at all, not to mention the 10 camps of captives behind them and the millions of battleships of survivors in the void. But all of this didn't matter. At most, it would only delay the progress of this battle. At least, it would cause no harm to the army behind Yi Xian. Therefore, he didn't rush to attack the black bug. Instead, he changed his direction slightly and went straight for the star-blood crocodile that was swinging its giant tail and creating a terrifying shockwave. This guy was the real threat. Although this threat wasn't to Yi Xian, killing his undying subordinates behind him was more unforgivable than attacking Yi Xian directly. This guy had to be killed. Hong, Hong, long of following Yi Xian's punch. The incomparably terrifying invisible shockwave formed by the swinging of the star-blood crocodile's enormous tail was instantly dispersed. Even the large number of sharp barbs that were shot out from his huge crocodile tail amidst the invisible shockwave were turned into ashes in an instant. The explosion shook the sky, and a large part of the space collapsed again. But all of this wasn't the end. How could an emperor's punch only have this much power? In fact, the terrifying power of this punch had only been reduced by 30% after destroying the shockwave formed by the star-blood crocodile swinging its giant tail. In the blink of an eye, the remaining 70% of the majestic power directly blasted onto the body of the starry sky-blood crocodile. No! This guy swung its giant tail and set off a terrifying shockwave like a hurricane. He turned around immediately. He originally thought that the star-violent ape in front of him would turn around to protect the close to 100 undying subordinates behind it. However, he obviously underestimated the strength of an emperor, and he didn't expect the star-violent ape to be so huge. The star-violent ape was so huge, and the energy and blood in its body were so majestic. At this moment, he saw that the star-violent ape didn't dodge or turn around to protect the more than 100 undying subordinates behind it. Instead, it used brute force to break through the attack. Without hesitation, it turned around and threw a punch at him. Moreover, the invisible shockwave that he had unleashed with all his strength collapsed at the first moment. The giant fist that was like a meteor was already rapidly approaching him. As his heart trembled, he raised his head and let out a roar filled with unwillingness and resentment. Hong! In the next moment, before the vicious roar from the starry sky-blood crocodile's mouth could be heard, an earth-shattering explosion resounded. The meteor-like giant fist of the star-violent ape hit his body directly. Without any suspense, it destroyed this marquee-level undying star-blood crocodile into a mist of blood and flesh that spread out. Shoo! A weak sound broke through the air. The star-violent ape waved its left hand, and an invisible shockwave swept up. In the blink of an eye, the bloody mist formed by the explosion of the star-blood crocodile's body was absorbed into its body and sent into the Shin Nong cauldron, where it began to condense the blood essence. At the same time, his figure suddenly turned around and took a large stride in the void, rushing towards the right side of the distance. This direction was the direction that the black bug with an unknown bloodline was escaping in. After all, the other party was also a marquee-level undying, and its bloodline ability was the type that could form a powerful sealing effect on the void. It was obvious that its ability to escape was extraordinary. Yi Xian had only used less than 2 breaths of time to kill the starry blood crocodile with a single punch. However, this black arachnid, who had attacked at the same time as the starry blood crocodile and then turned around to flee, had actually fled tens of millions of kilometers away in such a short period of time. It was almost at the end of Yi Xian's line of sight. This ability to escape made even Yi Xian sigh. If he gave the other party a little more time, even if it was only a few minutes, it would be difficult to find him later. Unfortunately, he didn't manage to escape far in the end. The star-blood crocodile was too weak and died with 1 punch, and the green bull didn't attack the subordinates behind Yi Xian, so he didn't feel too threatened and didn't want to pay attention to it for the time being. Therefore, the time that this black bug earned to escape was still not enough. It was just too short. You can't escape. A cold voice came out of its mouth. Before it finished speaking, the giant star violent ape disappeared from its original spot. When it reappeared, it was already 20 million miles away. Chapter 42:35. Li. Seeing Yi Xian chasing from behind, in the blink of an eye, he was already a million miles away. With his huge body, this was definitely close combat distance. The black Zerg with an unknown bloodline let out a shrill shriek again. Its already fast body increased in speed in the blink of an eye, and a circle of seemingly solid ripples swept past behind it. This time, the black bug was obviously going all out. He was using all his strength. Against an emperor, he knew that his bloodline ability couldn't form an effective seal. Hence, as he howled, the ripple formed from his bloodline ability rippled out from behind him. In an instant, it formed a counter-force. It was a repulsive force. Unfortunately, even though the recoil had increased his speed greatly, to a space berserk ape with the strength of an emperor-level undying, all of this was just a trick. It wasn't something that could be considered elegant, and it didn't have much practical use. Have you been forced into a corner? You actually used such a move. As an official level undying, don't you think your current state is a little too unbearable? Against all this, Yi Xian could only laugh coldly. Before he even finished his words, his body flashed once more and vanished. At this moment, an extremely strong sense of life and death crisis rose from the bottom of the heart of this black insectoid with an unknown bloodline. He almost subconsciously stopped his body and suddenly paused in the void. At the same time, he let out a shrill and fearful plea. "Don't kill me, I surrender." Show. Almost at the same time, Yi Xian's figure suddenly appeared hundreds of thousands of miles in front of him, just in time to hear the other party's words of submission and begging for mercy. However, Yi Xian obviously didn't intend to accept it. The space berserk ape's lips curled into a smile filled with tyrannical energy. Without hesitation, he punched out, "Surrender? I'm sorry, my underlings have just submitted. If I don't kill you, I'm afraid their morale will be affected. Your surrender, I won't accept." Li, hearing that he had already put down his dignity as an official level undying and begged for mercy, the other party still wasn't willing to let him go. And the reason was to appease the close to 100 undying underlings he had just ambushed. The black bug was furious. He raised his head and let out an unwilling howl. At this moment, he was filled with resentment. Rumble! In the next moment, before he could finish his sentence, an earth-shattering explosion rang out. The space berserk ape's meteor-like huge fist smashed into the black bug's body. Without any suspense, it destroyed the black bug's body, turning this official level undying into a bloody mist. Show! The space berserk ape waved its left hand, and an invisible wave of air swept up. In the blink of an eye, the blood mist formed by the explosion of the black bug's body was absorbed into its body and sent into the Shin cauldron, where it began to condense the second blood essence. At the same time, its body turned around and suddenly disappeared. When it reappeared, it was already 20 million miles away, and it quickly returned. All of this seemed to take a long time, but in fact, from the time Yi Xian attacked until now, it had only been less than 10 breaths of time. It only took him 2 breaths to kill the space blood crocodile. Then it took him 3 breaths to chase after the black bug. Then it took him 1 breath to kill it with 1 punch. In addition, it took Yi Xian about 3 breaths of time to return. In total, it took him 9 breaths. However, although 9 breaths of time was very short, for a powerful ferocious beast with the terrifying cultivation base of late Marquis Immortal Realm, there were too many things it could do. Amongst the 3 Marquis-level ferocious beast commanders in this ancient restricted area of the starry sky, the Green Bull's cultivation was the strongest. It had already attained the 7th rank of the Immortal Realm, and it was only 2 ranks away from perfection. Even the strength of the 1st level of the Undying Realm was only 3 levels away from Yi Xian. Unfortunately, the difference in strength between these 3 ranks wasn't within the same realm. Instead, it was the difference between an official and emperor-level undying. Therefore, even though there was only a difference of 3 levels, The green bull was destined to be crushed by Yi Xian in his current state. He was well aware of this, and he knew it better than anyone else. Therefore, when it opened its mouth and spat out 2 half-moonlight slashes that were 3,000 feet long, this green bull didn't even look at the result. It immediately turned around and fled far away. It was even faster than the starry sky blood crocodile and the black insect race by a breath. From the beginning to the end, it had definitely been more than 10 breaths of time since he started fleeing. In addition, his cultivation was the strongest. As a result, in the blink of an eye, the distance the green ox fled wasn't the slightest bit closer to the black arachnid that Yi Xian had just killed. Now, it was already more than 80 million kilometers away, even exceeding the naked eye of the starry sky berserk ape. The limit of the visual moment. Unfortunately, all of this was just fleeting clouds. There was no meaning in it at all. When an undying realm fully teleported, even a first-level emperor could reach 20 million miles away. Although the green bull had already fled 80 million miles away, to Yi Xian, it was just a few teleportations away. Without caring about the energy in his body, Yi Xian teleported 5 times consecutively. Within a few breaths of time, he had already crossed 100 million miles of space. With the last teleportation, his huge body appeared 1 million miles away from the green bull. The latter's figure that was flashing with extreme speed stopped abruptly, and after he let out a snort, he saw the starry sky ferocious ape snort coldly before swinging its right arm with the intention of smashing a punch towards him, and it terrified him to the point his entire body shivered on the spot. He almost blurted out, "Boss, please spare me. I'm willing to surrender. I have the remains of a 9-tailed sky fox treasure body from the ancient desolate era. I'm willing to serve you and let you order me around in the future. Besides, I've always been honest. I didn't attack those undying beings just now. Boss, you don't have to worry about them being suspicious. I don't want to die." Facing an undying marquis with such a strange temperament, Yi Xian was a bit drunk. He really didn't like the cowardly character of the old green ox. He reckoned that he wouldn't have much of a future after taking it in as a subordinate. However, the temptation of the corpse of a primordial supreme being 9-tailed heavenly fox was still quite extraordinary to Yi Xian. At the very least, it was far better than this cowardly green ox in front of him. Chapter 42-36. Boss, what this old cow said is true. The remains of the primordial ancient 9-tailed heavenly fox treasure body are under the planet that this old cow is in charge of. This old cow can bring you there to take a look later. Seeing that Yi Xian had really stopped the punch in his hand, the rank 7 green ox's eyes instantly lit up. He hurriedly struck while the iron was hot and hurriedly said, "In addition, for this forbidden area in the starry sky, this old cow is actually an outsider. I only came from outside more than 1,000 years ago, so there is no old cow here. A direct descendant." At this point, the Tier 7 green ox pointed in the distance behind him. "Don't think that I am the strongest beast commander in this forbidden area of the starry sky. However, for the past 1,000 years, I have been ostracized by the starry sky blood crocodile and that black arachnid. The two of them are the original commanders of this place. However, this old ox has always obeyed in public but opposed in private. The two of them are in cahoots. I don't have a sense of belonging here at all. For more than 1,000 years, my entire heart has been like a rootless duckweed. I've drifted so far that I almost have nothing to live for. Until today, I met you, boss. This is truly pitiful. I finally feel like I've found an organization. Boss, you are my birth father." "Stop!" Seeing that this shameless fellow was getting more and more ridiculous, the violent ape of stars was speechless. If this continued, he probably wouldn't know what kind of words he would say in a while. Under the chill in his heart, Yi Xian immediately shouted and stopped in time. It had to be said that this Tier 7 green ox was really not an ordinary weirdo. Just now, his eyes were slightly red. Now that Yi Xian suddenly shouted, the words in his mouth stopped abruptly. He immediately clamped his tail and stood there obediently. A solemn expression appeared on his face. His solemn expression was truly one of obedience. Other than him, there was probably no one else who could be a Tier 7 conferred marquis. Sighing in his heart, Yi Xian seemed to have suddenly thought of something. He also turned his head and looked at the battlefield in the distance. Just now, the 100 immortal realm old monsters, the captive army, and more than 100 million starships behind him were all trapped in a vast void with a radius of millions of kilometers because of the bloodline talent of the black arachnid. It was as if they were trapped in a swamp and could not move at all. However, at this moment, because the black arachnid with an unknown bloodline had been killed, the vast sealed void with a radius of millions of kilometers in the battlefield was quietly unsealed and returned to normal. The 100 immortal realm old monsters who had been holding back their fury charged out as soon as possible, followed by the 10 square arrays of the captive army and the million arachnids of the survivors of Sangji. After they charged out, they launched their cannons immediately. When Yi Xian turned around and looked at the battlefield, there was already a fierce battle in the void. The buffer zone with a radius of millions of kilometers between the two armies was no longer visible. More than 200 immortal realm old monsters, billions of ferocious beasts from the forbidden area, and an equal number of starships and arachnids were all fighting at the same moment. At this moment, they clashed and killed each other. The void that was more than 20 million li away was incomparably chaotic, and rumbling sounds filled the sky. Big brother, those ferocious beasts from the forbidden area are not good guys. They have been colluding with the star blood crocodile and the black arachnid all the time. I couldn't vent my anger until I killed them all. I've been dissatisfied with them for a long time. Seeing Yi Xian's action, the level 7 green ox not far away immediately guessed something. His eyes darted around, and he quickly moved closer and glared at the area where the battle was going on in the distance. He changed the topic and continued, however, among the more than 100 immortal level ferocious beast leaders, there are some who are like old Nyo. They are gentle and pure creatures. In fact, they have not had a sense of belonging to this place all these years. They are just hoping that you will come and save them soon. Why don't I call them over and greet you together? Of course, if you don't like them, I'll immediately slap them to death one by one. Who asked them to be so ugly? It's their fault for making you unhappy. The green ox's tone carried a sense of probing as it spoke carefully. Of course, if you don't like them, I'll immediately slap them to death. There was really no one else who was as shameless as him. Yi Xian turned his head and glanced at the level 7 green ox with a strange expression. After pondering for a while, he nodded slightly. Remember, don't accept those who have a large number of bloodline descendants. This was something that could not be helped. Even Yi Xian was envious of the 100 or so immortal realm ferocious beasts from the forbidden area. On one hand, he wanted to keep them and take them as his generals, but on the other hand, he wanted to kill them all and refine them into blood essence. Unfortunately, this matter could not be done at the same time. He turned his head and looked at the bloody battlefield in front of him. He was pondering over this problem. Now that he heard this thick-skinned green ox's words, he made a decision. Most of the immortal realm ferocious beast leaders had clearly left behind many bloodline descendants in this forbidden area. For example, the subblood greedy wolf and the 2-star violent apes that Yi Xian had killed last time were mostly of the same bloodline as them on the life stars they guarded. Obviously, these immortal realm ferocious beast leaders could not be left alive. Otherwise, their bloodline descendants would be killed, and they would definitely harbor hatred in their hearts, unable to truly submit. On the other hand, this level 7 green ox was originally an outsider. At this moment, he was trying to plead with Yi Xian. He definitely wanted to save the ferocious beast leaders who were on good terms with him. Those who could be on good terms with this fellow were probably in the same situation as him. They were all lone wolves. There was no harm in taking in some of these immortal realm ferocious beast leaders. It could also strengthen and improve the strength of his subordinates to a certain extent. All right, big brother, just watch. This old ox will definitely bring back those who meet the conditions. In reality, the situation was not much different from what Yi Xian had expected. Hearing that he agreed, the level 7 green ox immediately grinned. Before he finished speaking, he had already turned around and shot toward the battlefield in front of him. After a short while, more than 20 immortal realm ferocious beast leaders followed behind him. They cowered and trembled as they arrived in front of Yi Xian. They stopped in the void hundreds of thousands of miles away. As far as the eye could see, there were all kinds of bloodlines. Basically, they were the kind that were difficult to breed. The race of their descendants was indeed a group of lone wolves. Why are you trembling? You bunch of fellows, why aren't you worshipping? Seeing that Yi Xian seemed to be satisfied with the 20 immortal realm ferocious beasts he brought, the level 7 green ox's tail, which was originally tucked behind his back, immediately swung proudly. The big ox stared at the 20 or so ferocious beast leaders and reprimanded them on the spot. This is the big brother I just acknowledged, which means he is your big brother. Hurry up and call for help. Chapter 42:37. The 20 or so immortal rank ferocious beasts brought by the rank 7 green ox were indeed all alone. Judging from their expressions, they were obviously not welcomed in this forbidden land of stars. They belonged to a group of leaders who were ostracized. Therefore, at this moment, a large number of ferocious beasts were killed in the battlefield behind them. Not only was there no sadness on their faces, but they also looked relieved. This was already the request of the talisman Empress Yi Xian. He immediately nodded, then raised his hand and pointed at the battlefield behind him. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he said, "Go, return to the battlefield. I won't force you. If you want to surrender, I don't care if you join forces or fight alone. Each of you will kill an immortal rank ferocious beast leader." Roar! Screech! As soon as he finished speaking, the 20 or so immortal rank ferocious beast leaders immediately turned around, roaring furiously as they rushed to the battlefield behind them. Obviously, they had made their choice. "Boss, I'll go kill one or two too." To Yi Xian's surprise, as the 20 or so immortal rank ferocious beast leaders left quickly, the rank 7 green ox on the side immediately turned around and rushed to the battlefield while muttering, "Although I'm gentle and don't like to kill, I'm doing this for you, boss. I'll do it." Moo! Seeing this scene, a black line appeared on Yi Xian's forehead once again. At this moment, he suddenly had a bad feeling. It seemed that accepting this shameless green ox that was at the 7th level of the immortal Marquis realm wasn't a good thing. It was too troublesome. Who knew how many more moths it would create in the future? Shaking his head with a bitter smile, his figure disappeared from the spot. After 2 flashes, he directly appeared thousands of miles away from the battlefield in the void. He didn't make a move, but just stood in the void like an outsider, watching the vast expanse of the void that stretched for more than 2,000 miles. Thousands of miles of the battlefield. Originally, there were more than 100 immortal rank ferocious beast leaders in this forbidden land of stars, while Yi Xian only had 98 immortal rank old monsters under him. In terms of high-end battle strength, Yi Xian's side was at a disadvantage. But now, as Green Ox took away more than 20 immortal rank ferocious beast leaders and joined Yi Xian's side, they left the battlefield and returned quickly. They instantly turned against Yi Xian. The high-end battle strength of both sides immediately decreased and increased. With the addition of Green Ox, an immortal rank Marquis, the situation completely reversed. Yi Xian's side now had the upper hand. As such, he naturally didn't need to make a move. It was a good opportunity to train his subordinates and sharpen their skills. Hong! Not far to the right, a shocking explosion sounded. Yi Xian turned around and happened to see an immortal rank ferocious beast leader of the enemy side being killed by the 3-clawed flood dragon. The 3-clawed flood dragon's strength had reached rank 7 immortal rank, while the immortal rank ferocious beast leader it killed was only rank 4 immortal rank. There was a big difference in strength, so it was natural that the immortal rank ferocious beast leader was killed so quickly. Xiao! Without hesitation, Yi Xian immediately made a move and swept the remains of the immortal rank ferocious beast leader over. During this process, he directly crushed the remains into the purest blood mist and directly absorbed it into his body, sending it into the Shinnong cauldron to condense blood essence. Almost at the same time, 2 earth-shattering explosions rang out from the void on the left side one after the other. Turning around, it turned out that the shameless rank 7 Green Ox had made a move. The 2 immortal rank ferocious beast leaders this old guy had picked were both at peak rank 9. They should be from the same clan as the Starry Blood Crocodile and the Black Insect clan. Although they were extremely powerful, they didn't even have a chance to fight back when facing a terrifying Green Ox with rank 7 Marquis immortal rank. They were blasted into 2 clouds of blood mist. "All right, there's no need for you to make a move." Seeing this scene, Yixian immediately stopped the rank 7 green ox from making another move. Otherwise, with him alone, the remaining 100 or so ferocious beast leaders from the enemy camp would soon be wiped out. In this way, the purpose of refining weapons would be gone. As he spoke, Yixian waved his hand again. 2 invisible forces swept out, directly absorbing the boundless blood mist that exploded from the bodies of the 2 immortal-level beasts into his body, sending it into the Shinnong cauldron to condense the blood essence. At this moment, the shameless green ox, who had made a move to kill the 2 ferocious beast leaders and had perfectly expressed his sincerity, had already turned around and hurried back. At this moment, he had completely let down his guard against Yixian. He had completely treated himself as a loyal lackey. He didn't suspect that Yixian would make a move on him at all. Therefore, when he returned this time, he directly went behind Yixian. The distance was very close. He stood there with his 2 back hooves, but his front hooves were crossed in front of his chest. He was completely like a gold medal fighter and bodyguard. Yixian was intoxicated by this scene and kept rolling his eyes. Similar scenes kept happening one after another. To the 100 or so immortal rank ferocious beast leaders in this powerful forbidden land of stars, today was definitely a disaster day. 2 of the 3 marquee immortal rank commanders in the forbidden land were dead and 1 surrendered. Even more than 20 immortal rank leaders like them had surrendered to the enemy. In fact, the remaining 100 or so ferocious beast leaders all had the same thought. Unfortunately, the enemy didn't accept their surrender at all. They could only fight to the death. Unfortunately, in the distant void, there was still an immortal rank emperor observing the battle, including that shameless traitorous green ox commander. Under such circumstances, there was no chance of survival at all. These 100 or so ferocious beast leaders had already lost all their will to fight. Their minds were in chaos. In less than half a day, they were completely killed. All the remains of the immortal rank leaders were crushed into a cloud of blood mist by Yixian with a wave of his hand. He immediately absorbed it into his body and sent it into the Shinnong cauldron to start the blood essence condensation. However, even though the 100 or so sempiternal realm ferocious beasts had been killed, there were simply too many ferocious beasts in the forbidden land of starry sky. There were more than 100 million ferocious beasts. The battle that followed was still ongoing. Almost a day later, this shocking bloody massacre finally came to an end. Almost all the 100 million ferocious beasts in the Forbidden Land were killed. Only a few million ferocious beasts remained because they were chosen by the survivors of Sangji Star and kept as mounts. Because of this, they were safe lives. After a day and a half, the battle ended. Next, it was time to count the spoils of war. For the expedition army, this battle's harvest was shocking. There were more than 100 million ferocious beast remains, not to mention there were more than 100 life stars. On each life star, there were a large number of ferocious beasts stored. Chapter 42-38. In the void, all kinds of battleships in the 10 square arrays of the captive army had scattered, including the million starry sky battleships of the survivors of Mulberry Orchid Star. Their main mission was to collect all the remains of the ferocious beasts in the space. Then, they would enter the 100+ life stars in the Space Forbidden Zone to search for cultivation resources and other spoils of war. As for Yixian, his mind was currently immersed in the Shinnong cauldron within his body. As far as the eye could see, 137 blood essences had long been condensed within the belly of the volcano. They quietly floated above the flame pool at the bottom of the volcano. Among them, there were 135 normal immortal rank ferocious beast blood essences and only 2 marquee immortal rank ferocious beast blood essences. Yixian didn't plan on using these blood essences for the time being, especially the 2 marquee immortal rank ferocious beast blood essences. They were one of the main ingredients for the level 22 pill in the future. The level 21 pill required normal immortal rank ferocious beast blood essences. Last time, Yixian used 5 immortal rank ferocious beast blood essences to refine the level 21 pill. Although the perfect formula for the level 22 pill hadn't been derived yet, according to his estimation, he would need at least 5 marquee immortal rank ferocious beast blood essences to refine the level 22 pill. This was a top-tier resource that could only be obtained after killing an Marquis Immortal rank. It was very hard to get. Hence, even though Yi Xian was sure that he would have a breakthrough after consuming the 2 Marquis Immortal rank Ferocious Beast blood essences, he still didn't give up. However, after some hesitation, he gave up on this plan in the end. In any case, he had to store up the 5 blood essences of Marquis level Immortality level blood essences for the grade 22 pill. He didn't even plan on using the 100 normal Immortal rank Ferocious Beast blood essences right away. After all, other than the level 22 pill he was using, he still had to refine some level 21 pills as backup. He still had more than 60 vials of level 20 elixir that could create an Immortal rank, but he only had 1 level 21 pill that could create an Immortal rank. He had to refine some later. Of course, refining a level 21 pill only required 5 Immortal rank Ferocious Beast blood essences and various other top-notch resources. Yi Xian now had more than 100 Immortal rank Vicious Beast blood essences in his hands. He could use a portion of them to refine a level 21 pill, while the rest could be consumed to improve his cultivation base and strength. However, he was not in a hurry. After all the Ferocious Beast's blood essence had been condensed, what he was most concerned about now was the remains of the 9-tailed celestial fox that the shameless level 7 green ox had mentioned before. Swish! With a thought, all the blood essences turned into streaks of light and shot into the sealed cave at the bottom of the volcano in the central domain. Immediately after, Yi Xian's consciousness retreated and turned to look at the level 7 green ox. Let's go. Bring me to see the remains of the 9-tailed celestial fox you mentioned earlier. Boss, this way please. The rank 7 Azure Ox had obviously expected that Yi Xian would ask about this matter first after the battle ended. Therefore, when it heard his words, it wasn't surprised in the slightest. It put down the pair of front hooves in front of its chest and no longer stood up. As it spoke, it spread its 4 hooves and immediately led the way. He flew toward the largest star among the hundreds of stars with life in the distance. Yi Xian stepped forward and followed closely behind it. As for his body size, it had returned to its original height of 30 meters because he had retreated from the 9 transformation devil ape bloodline ability. Could not be helped. Although the terrifying body size of 30 million meters was strong, it was not convenient and could not be maintained at all times. Since he had retreated from the 9 transformation devil ape bloodline ability, Yi Xian's cultivation base had dropped from level 1 immortal to level 4 Marquis immortal. He was weaker than the level 7 green ox in front of him by 3 small levels. However, Yi Xian was not worried at all that the green ox would betray him and suddenly attack him. If the green bull of the 7th step really had such thoughts, Yi Xian would be able to instantly enter the bloodline ability of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape with a single thought. At that time, when the strength of the Immortal Emperor Stage 1 returned, he would definitely torture this shameless and thick-skinned green bull to death. The other party clearly understood this as well. Therefore, even though he suspected that Yi Xian's original cultivation was only at the 4th level of the Marquis Immortal and wasn't his match at all, the rank 7 Azure Ox still didn't dare to act rashly. On one hand, the enemy had a terrifying bloodline ability. With a thought, he could transform into a 10,000 m tall raging ape, and his strength would instantly rise to Emperor level. On the other hand, when Yi Xian first came here, he was surrounded by the rank 7 green ox, the starry sky blood crocodile, and the black arachnid. He was clearly surrounded, but his mysterious method of disappearing without a trace in an instant caused the rank 7 green ox to be extremely fearful. Very quickly, Yi Xian arrived at the life star that he was overseeing under the guidance of the green ox of the 7th step. Just as he entered the atmosphere of this enormous life star, an extremely dense spiritual energy of heaven and earth assaulted his face. Yi Xian spread his spirit sense and scanned the entire surface and ocean of the life star. He saw a large amount of top-level treasures that even he was envious of. After all, this was the base of an immortal. There were too many treasures here. It must be the same in the life star blood crocodile and the black bug race. Big brother, now that I'm already your ox, of course, these top-notch treasures in my nest belong to you, big brother. Just take it as a token of appreciation from this old ox. Please don't reject it, big brother. You must accept it. Seeing Yi Xian's envious eyes, the green ox did not feel any heartache. He directly expressed that he would give everything to Yi Xian. Yi Xian naturally wouldn't refuse, but there was no need to rush to collect them now. In any case, all of the top-notch treasures in the Starry Sky Blood Crocodile and the Black Arachnid's Nest would appear on the list of spoils of war and be delivered to Yi Xian. At that time, he would collect them all together. It would appear more generous. However, the attitude of this shameless green ox in front of him made Yi Xian's heart tremble. He looked at him with deep meaning. After that, the corner of his mouth slowly rose into a playful smile. "Old ox, seems like you have something to ask of me." "Yes, yes, yes, boss is wise. Nothing can escape your eyes.